Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys back. Some of you guys are joining us now. That's wonderful. Nice to see you guys. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today, what we're going to be doing is starting with meditation, just like we do each day. Then after our meditation, I'm going to move into sharing with you the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that you would need to know inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. This is what's going to help you to actually move the mind to enlightenment. Without this teaching, you wouldn't actually be able to make any kind of progress on the path to enlightenment or even understand any aspect of the teachings of the Buddha. Then after our lunch break, we're going to come back and I'm going to share with you the ins and outs of meditation, because you'll have had an opportunity to practice meditation with me at least 3 times up to that point. And now it'll be time to go in and talk about meditation and how it fits in to the overall path to enlightenment. So if you'd like to join for meditation, we start with the chanting, which is what I taught you guys yesterday. Then I'm going to come in with some guidance after that. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. So if you'd like to join along, you're more than welcome to join in on the chanting, and then I'm going to come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Makewa Bhutang Makewanhang Apiwateyami Sawakato Makawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakawato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakatoro Kawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhoto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. As I mentioned this morning, I'm going to be spending time helping you guys to understand the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. Everything else that he taught plugs into this Eightfold Path in one way or the other. This is the path to enlightenment. In terms of getting to this enlightened mental state that we talked about yesterday, where your mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, it's this path that's going to help you to do that. You'll be able to eliminate all your discontent feelings, all the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others can be eliminated through training your mind with this Eightfold Path. You'll get to the point where your mind is focused, concentrated. You'll have clarity of mind and deep memory. And your personal, professional relationships will really be blossoming because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile anymore. Your relationships can be at ease. But as long as you don't understand the Eightfold Path, you're going to experience certain struggles and difficulties in life. When you experience certain relationships or certain situations in life, you're going to notice that there's certain struggles and difficulties. But life doesn't have to be that way. You can opt out of that. You can choose to train your mind and experience this better way of life that the Buddha taught. So just like always, when we go in our talk today, if you guys have any questions, I'm going to be stopping at different times and opening up for questions. If those of you guys here at the temple could use the microphones, that would be great because the people online will be able to hear you, be able to hear you here as well. You can just get a microphone, press the gray button, the lights will come on. You just hold that up to your chin, and then you can keep the microphone with you, and you might have more than one question, or someone else might have a question around you. You can share it. And if you can turn it off when you're not using it, that'll be sure that we don't get any feedback. For those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, open up your microphone, and then ask any and all questions that you like. So this Eightfold Path is comprised of 8 individual factors that I'm going to walk you through, helping you to understand. It's organized into 3 sections: wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. The way that you can think about the Eightfold Path is that if you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would have these 8 individual dials, and you would kind of tweak these dials, trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, the Eightfold Path is the same way for your mind. As you tweak these individual factors and bring them into your life to be able to learn, examine, and investigate them, to reflect on them, to independently verify if they're true, and then you start practicing the teachings, you'll be able to see that it improves the quality of your mind, that your mind starts performing more optimally. But also, as we talked yesterday, it's important that you don't believe any of these teachings. Nothing in the teachings of the Buddha is based in belief. So when I walk you through these teachings, I'm going to show you how to intellectually learn them through examination and investigation of them. I'm going to show you how to reflect on them, to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then I'm going to teach you how to practice them so you can integrate them into your life. And that's where you're going to experience the real results, because that's where the real transformation to the mind is happening, when you actually practice the teachings. If you just intellectually understood the teachings, but you didn't practice them, you wouldn't be able to actually experience the results that the Buddha talks about with enlightenment. So I'm going to walk you through all of these, starting with right view, using the original words of the Buddha. So here's the words of the Buddha on right view. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So here what you're getting in the Eightfold Path is you're getting the Buddha pointing to another teaching and saying that is right view. What he's pointing to is a teaching called the Four Noble Truths. Underneath of this line, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths, so you can see the connection between the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. Because as I mentioned to you, there's other teachings that plug into the Eightfold Path. So the Buddha isn't going to explain the entire Four Noble Truths within the Eightfold Path. He's just pointing to it and saying that is right view. And then what you need to do is you need to go study the Four Noble Truths, and that's how you're going to understand what right view is. So I just put this here so that you have confidence that what the Buddha is doing is pointing to the Four Noble Truths. But now I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths so that you can understand what these are. You're going to be able to have a breakthrough to understanding what the problem is in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. In 4 simple statements, you can understand and have a real breakthrough to understanding why your mind keeps experiencing anger, difficulties, and struggles, and frustration, and annoyment, and guilt, and shame, and fear, and stress, and anxiety, and all these other things. But you're going to need to listen with eager ears. You're going to need to actively pay attention to understand and independently verify what I'm sharing. Because not only am I going to share with you the Four Noble Truths, but I'm first going to start with the 3 universal truths, because these are building blocks that are going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. If you don't understand the 3 universal truths, you're not going to understand the Four Noble Truths. And we call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true. But in order for you to benefit, you're going to need to know that they're true. And remember, the Buddha isn't teaching you the way the world should be. And then if everybody follows rules or commandments, that then the world will become a peaceful place. He's explaining to you the way the world is, because by understanding the way the world is and what these natural laws are, then you can navigate the world more peacefully. But when you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle and have difficulties. So he's going to explain to you the way the world is. And because you live in this world, you will be able to independently verify what he's teaching is true, so that you can get to the point where you've cultivated wisdom. So this first universal truth is called impermanence. This is where the Buddha is helping you to understand the world, that it is impermanent, that things are constantly changing. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are impermanent. They are changing. They arise, they change, and then they fade away. This is called a conditioned object. and it's impermanent, that things are arising, changing, and fading away. And anything in the material world around you is impermanent. Anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it's all impermanent. It's constantly changing. And this is going to be a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths when we get to it. There are things called unconditioned objects. What I just described are conditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. Unconditioned object is something like enlightenment. Enlightenment itself. It doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. Your mind is unconditioned by the time you get to enlightenment. It's a permanent mental state by the time you get to that mental state. The natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught, those are also unconditioned objects. They do not arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. This is why his teachings from 2,500 years ago are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago, because what he described as natural laws are the same exact natural laws that exist today. So here, I'm explaining to you that the world around you is impermanent and it's constantly changing. That's the learning. That's the intellectual understanding that I'm sharing with you about this universal truth of impermanence. But as a wise practitioner, you don't believe anything. You don't believe anything I say, anything I write in books, anything that anybody else says. Now, after you've done that intellectual learning and I've shared with you that teaching, you now take it into reflection. When you're reflecting, you start looking around the world to try to determine whether this is true or false. And what I suggest you do is take things that you're familiar with to try to see if this is actually true or if it's false. Because if what I'm saying is true, you'd be able to independently verify it. Because if everything around you is impermanent, that means what I'm sharing with you is you're not going to be able to find anything around you that is permanent, that either you see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind. So you can start with something you're familiar with, like this human body. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning it never changes, or is this body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? So what's the answer? Is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. Ever since the egg and the sperm came together, this body's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get gray hair, or we lose our hair. We get wrinkles and moles and pimples. We get fatter and skinnier. All these things are constant changing, right? This is the constant change of the body. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, that means the people that are in your life are exactly the same people that have been in your life all the way through your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life throughout your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? Definitely impermanent. Right? You're going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, 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 up. Some people's goes down, 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 down. Right? Your bank account is impermanent. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? Rona says impermanent. What do you guys say? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. It's sunny, it's raining, it's some places snowing, sleeting, hail, different things like this, tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons. This is all impermanence. It's constantly changing. So we could go on and on and on and on. And if that's what you need to do that, right? Look around the world and see if you can find something that's permanent. You see the green leaves in the trees, and then you see the brown ones on the ground. That's impermanence, right? You're walking down the street, you see a sidewalk with a crack in it. That's impermanence. It's changing. You look at the floor of the temple, you see some wood planks are longer or shorter than others. Some of them are different colors or different shape or different textures. This is all impermanence. We had a certain number of people in the class yesterday. Now we have a different number of people in the class today. That's impermanence. And tomorrow we'll probably have a different number, right? Things are constantly changing around you. So this is a universal truth that you can independently verify. And if you need to do more work to be able to make sure your mind sees the wisdom in this universal truth, go around the world and do that and make sure that you commit that to memory, that everything around you is constantly changing. It's impermanent. Okay, so this is the first universal truth. The second universal truth is called discontentedness. What the Buddha is doing here is he's explaining to you the unenlightened mind and what an unenlightened being experiences. Now, some people will refer to this as suffering. You might hear this if you've learned some teachings of the Buddha in other places, but I don't use that word, and I'm going to explain to you why after I explain to you what this is. The original word in the original text that captures the historical teachings of the Buddha, the word dukkha is being used. This word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. When the Buddha is explaining what dukkha is, he explains three feelings. He explains pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are very pleasant for the mind to experience, and they're based on some condition. The mind is having some condition to be met. In other words, if it's sunny outside, then you will be happy. If your boss gives you a raise, then you will be happy. If your mom calls you today, then you will be happy, right? These are conditions. There needs to be some condition met, and then you will be happy. And that feeling is formed within the mind. Then there's painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful. And once again, these are conditioned feelings. Based on some condition, you will now experience a painful feeling. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. For me, I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's quite painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category. But shyness is a good example of neither painful nor pleasant. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say you were on public transportation, you were like sitting on a bus and somebody you didn't know came in and sat down really close to you and your body was touching their body. You'd probably say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind's kind of dissatisfied or uncomfortable in this situation. That's what neither painful nor pleasant is. So this is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing, is conditioned feelings. So for example, an unenlightened being might wake up in the morning, see that it's sunny outside, and get really excited. I might say, yay, I'm going on this hike. I really wanted to go on this hike and it's sunny today. I can go on this trail, go hiking in the woods. Oh, it's going to be so great. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to go out and have a good time. I can't wait. And now they go take a shower, and they take a shower. They come out 30 minutes later and it's pouring down raining. And now they're sad or frustrated because they base their feeling of happiness on the sun, and the sun is not permanent. Now they're experiencing another conditioned feeling of painful feeling like sadness, anger, frustration. Where what an enlightened being would do, because an enlightened being is beyond these conditional feelings. An enlightened being is, their mind's already happy. It's already joyful. It's unconditioned happiness. There's no condition that needs to be met. Before they even wake up in the morning, they're already happy. They see it's sunny outside. Sweet. I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to call my friends. It's going to be a great time. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. Now we go take a shower, and then this individual comes out and they see it's raining. Okay, well, I guess I'm not going hiking. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll invite my friends over. We can cook some dinner. We'll have a good time, right? You can maintain your happiness. You can maintain your joy because the joy and the happiness wasn't based on the sun. So when the sun is gone, then the happiness is still there. It's okay. The mind can maintain its contentedness and its joy. But in the unenlightened state, because an individual is forming conditioned feelings, the mind is going to go up and down and up and down. And this is called where the mind is discontent, experiencing discontentedness, or the mind is discontented, right? Even when the mind's having those pleasant feelings where it's so happy and excited, the mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. If you've ever been so excited you like tripped and fell, you know what I'm talking about, that the mind in that happy, excited state, it's unstable, it's unsteady, right? So this is the Buddha describing for you what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. Conditioned feelings. Okay. And this is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind is experiencing these conditioned happiness where it arises, it changes, and then your happiness fades away. Okay. Now, some people refer to this as suffering. I don't refer to it as suffering, because suffering explains the painful feelings really well. When you're experiencing sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, you'd probably say you were suffering in that situation. But if your boss came in and gave you a raise and you got really excited, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not. Right? Or that person you don't know came and sat next to you in public transportation and your body was touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? So suffering describes the painful feelings really well, but it doesn't describe the pleasant feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So you would be missing 66% of the Buddha's teachings if you describe this as suffering. So you'd only understand 33% of his teachings. And if you only understand 33% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the ultimate goal? You wouldn't be able to. Right? So it's unwise to continue to use the word suffering here, even though you might see that in other places. So I encourage you to use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because that's going to bring your mind to the full understanding of what the Buddha is explaining to you about how the mind is shaken up when it's forming conditioned feelings. Now, in terms of independently verifying this, you know that your mind is unenlightened, and you know that you experience certain feelings in the world. So ask yourself, does this accurately describe what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant? Are there any feelings that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories? Because if there is, then this isn't a universal truth. And if you're having difficulty seeing that, let me know when we get to questions and we can talk about it. Okay, there's this third universal truth, and I apologize, the projector looks like it slipped down a little bit. It doesn't have it on there all the way. If someone would like to adjust it, you're more than welcome to. This here is saying the universal truth of non-self. There is no permanent self. That's what this is actually saying. Okay, so this universal truth of non-self, thank you, sir. This is the solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. If you think back to yesterday, when we talked about those 10 fetters, the 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind, this is the solution to the very first fetter. The very first fetter is called personal existence view. I'll explain to you the problem first, and then I'll explain to you the solution. One of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind is that the mind has this personal existence view, where the mind is confused. It has misunderstanding. It has this lack of wisdom about this body and this mind. The mind in the unenlightened state, with its personal existence view, it will cling to your self-image and it will cling to your self-identity, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now, if you're being perceived by others the way you want to be perceived, you will be experiencing pleasant feelings because that's agreeable to you. But if you're experiencing where other people don't perceive you the way you want to be perceived, you will have painful feelings like anger, frustration, sadness, and others. I'll give you some examples. If you're clinging to this self-image as who you are, meaning you're clinging to this body, when you spill something on your clothing at a social situation, you will be embarrassed. If you ever experienced embarrassment when you spilled something on your clothing in front of other people, that is your personal existence view. Because as long as the clothes are clean, you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived by others, and you're happy about that. But as soon as you have chocolate ice cream or spaghetti sauce over your clothes and other people maybe aren't perceiving you the way you want to be perceived, now you might be frustrated or annoyed or embarrassed or some other discontent feeling. If you ever noticed a wrinkle or a pimple or a mole or a gray hair, you started losing your hair and you looked in the mirror and you were shaken up by that, that is your personal existence view. Wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, the mind is clinging to this body, holding on to it and wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. This just is impossible because the body is going to be constantly changing. If you did like me when I was a teenager, I used to get out the gel and the mousse and I used to run it through my hair and I had to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I went off to school. And sometimes I would even miss the bus. I was doing this for so long, right? This is personal existence view. Not comfortable to go outside until every little thing about this body looks exactly the way you want it to look. Or if you've ever put on clothes and jewelry and did your hair and makeup and you looked in the mirror and you're like, no, that's not how I want to look today. And you went and changed your clothes and you looked in the mirror. You're like, no, that's not how I want to look today. And you go change your clothes. You're like, okay, now I'm ready to go outside. This is your personal existence view. The mind is clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And it can only feel comfortable if that is intact. That's the self-image part of it. But then there's the self-identity, where the mind can cling to your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, a job or occupation, any number of things that the mind can cling to as I am this. And now that's your identity. Like, I am American, or I am German, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, or I am Chinese, or I am a police officer, or I am a Buddhist teacher. Any of this I am, again, say you're at a restaurant where 2 tables over, somebody's saying, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. And you hear that and you identify with I am American. Well, now you're going to be very pleased and like, wow, they're talking about me. You feel so great about that. But now 2 tables over, somebody is saying something degrading and disparaging about the country that you come from and your identity that you're clinging to. And now you're angry and you're frustrated because they're talking about me, right? This is the mind clinging to a self-identity, thinking that this is who you are as a person. Or say you were ever in a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or wife, and you identified with I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend. And now when you guys were together, you felt just fine. But when you broke up and you were single, your mind didn't identify with I am single. So now you really struggled during that period of time, and you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because that's what the mind thought was going to solve the problem. Because that uncomfortableness being single, the mind didn't identify that way, and it felt like if I hurried up and got right back into another relationship, this will solve my problem because I can reassume this identity. Or if you've ever had a job or occupation and you identified with that as who you are, like I am a police officer. If I identified that way, now doing that job for 10 or 15, 20 years, it's deeply planted in the mind that I am a police officer. But then when I retire, when I get injured or I can't do the job anymore, if I get fired or something like this, now, when you're a taxi driver, your mind doesn't identify that way. And now you really struggle during that period of time. So if you allow the mind to adopt any kind of identity like this, you will struggle in these situations. There's people who come to Thailand and they say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself, right? They come to Thailand to find their self. They need to find their true self, right? Well, what the Buddha is teaching you with the universal truth of non-self is you're not going to find yourself in Thailand because it doesn't exist. There is no self. But the confusion and the misunderstanding, the lack of wisdom that the unenlightened mind has, it will cling to this body and it'll cling to the mind, the self-image and the self-identity, thinking that this is who you are. And now when you go through life, you will really struggle in certain aspects of your life. You can't find yourself here because it doesn't exist. Somebody might come here and they find a new job, new hobbies, new activities, new friends or something like this, and they go back home to their home country. I found myself. I know who I am again. Yay, I found myself. Well, as soon as those hobbies and jobs and activities change, they can't find themselves anymore. They don't know who they are, right? Because all that stuff has changed because it's impermanent. I one time had a student that called me up and they contacted me through private sessions and we were talking and they said, David, ever since COVID, I've been having this really hard time going shopping. I said, well, what's going on? He said, well, I'm a really great tipper and I keep going into these places where I don't typically tip, but now since COVID, they use these computer systems and they turn around the screen and it says, pay your for my coffee. And I just spent 30 seconds ordering this coffee and now it says tip me 25%, 28%, 30%. And I'm so conflicted in this situation because I am a great tipper and I haven't been tipping and I feel so uncomfortable in these situations. And I said, that's your personal existence view. You think in your mind, I am a great tipper. And now in a situation where you're not tipping, you're really struggling in that situation, right? So your mind can grab onto anything thinking that this is who you are as a person. This is your identity. In fact, we've all got labels when we were born. I don't know what your label was, but my label was David, right? That was the label that was given to me. And now we form all this character and personality and who we think we are as a person. We even have national anthems and national flags and national sports teams that we cheer for maybe. And that reinforces this personal existence view in the mind. So all throughout our life, our mind has adopted this conditioning to think that we have this self. And now we hold on to this and we really struggle in certain situations. But what the Buddha is teaching you is to shed that, to let go of that clinging, not hold on to that as who you think you are. So you can get to the point where you realize that this body was born on a certain land, but you don't have to adopt the identity of that's who you are. So I know that this body was born on a land that today we refer to as the USA, but I don't have to adopt the identity of I am American. I don't have to adopt that identity. That's typically what we do when we're born in a certain place, but we don't have to do that. We can shed that out of our mind and realize that, yes, this body was born there on that particular land, that earth, that dirt, but it wasn't called America before, and it's not going to always be called America because it's going to change, and my mind doesn't have to adopt the identity of that's who I am as a person. So this is a little bit about personal existence view and the confusion and the misunderstanding that the mind has, and the solution, which is the universal truth of non-self, to realize non-self, to realize that there is no self. There is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, but you don't have to identify with this as who you are as a person. Okay, so this is a little bit on this topic. Sometimes people understand this when I first start teaching it. Other times it's really hard for people because you've spent so much time accumulating personal existence view. But even at this early stage, you can independently verify that there is no self. I'm going to give you a few options of how to do that. So this is the first one. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about your character, your personality, who you thought you were as a person. Has it been exactly the same during all those phases of your life, or has it been constantly changing? It's been changing, right? So you can see that there is no permanent self. It's been constantly changing how you viewed yourself. Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Rhona's shaking your head no. What about the rest of you guys? You say no, you're not less of a person? Are you less of a person? You think you're less of a person when you have... Physically, you think you are. Okay. So you have less use of a hand and an arm. You only have one hand and an arm, but are you less of a person because you have less body? You're not less of a person, right? So that's how most people will answer it, right? So you can see intellectually that this body isn't you, because if you answer that question that, yes, I am less of a person, then your mind is viewing this body as who you are, right? So your mind intellectually understands that this body is not you. But the mind's confusion, the misunderstanding that it has, is in the heat of the moment when somebody says to you, wow, you're so handsome, or you're so beautiful. You're like, that's me, yeah. Or then when somebody says, oh my God, that shirt you're wearing looks so horrible on you. Where did you get that from? Now you're frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. So intellectually, you can understand that this body is in you because you would answer that question differently. But in the heat of the moment, you get confused, that the mind then gets angry or frustrated in certain situations. Here's a third way that you can independently verify this. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? Where are you? Okay, so it's pointing here. Some people pointing here. Okay, this is common. People will either point here or they will point here. I am here, right? So we need to look at what we're pointing to. If you're pointing here, what you're pointing to is a shirt. And you need to ask yourself, is that who you are, this shirt? If I took off this shirt and held it up and pointed to it, is that me? Is that who I am? That shirt you're wearing, is that you? Saying no? Okay, throw away the shirt. That's not you. Where are you? And someone might point again. Well, what are you pointing to? You're pointing to skin. Is that who you are? That skin that you've got? Is that you? Right? So if we took off the skin and held that up, is that you? Your skin? That's not you. Okay, let's throw that away. Let's look for this self. Where are you? Right? Someone might point again. Well, we've got ribs, we've got muscle tissue, we've got organs, we've got fluid. None of that bits and pieces and parts are you. And this is the confusion that the mind has, is it keeps thinking that this is you, and it keeps holding on to it. But what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see is this is not you. It's not who you are. And there are certain tools and techniques to be able to strip this away out of the mind so that you don't keep holding on to this self-image and this self-identity, thinking that this is who you are. Where you can learn how to care for this body because it's wise to care for it, but you don't hold on to it and cling to it, thinking that this is who you are. So this is a little bit on the universal truth of non-self. Do you guys have any questions on the 3 universal truths? Remember, for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or if you guys could use the microphones, go ahead. Let me know what questions you guys have.
Yeah. Right. Who am I?
So this is...
if I'm not body, who am I?
Yeah, this is a common question. People will say, well, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then who am I? Right? This is the mind continuing to grasp and trying to grab onto something. If I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, what am I? Just tell me so I can grab onto it and I can identify with that as who I am. But what the Buddha is saying is none of this is you. You need to let go of all of it, realizing that none of this is you. That there is a body, there is a mind, it's come together in this existence, but this doesn't define who you are as a person. So essentially what we have here is we have a consciousness or a mind, and we have a consciousness or a mind here, and we're using this body to form some sounds in order for this consciousness, this mind, to talk to that consciousness and that mind. We're just using the body as a mechanism to be able to allow 2 consciousness to talk to each other. But that's not even who we are. The consciousness or the mind is not us. The body is not us. It's just 2 things that have come together for this existence. But we don't need to cling to any of that, thinking that that's who we are. Nothing. You need to be able to get to the point where you strip all that away and you don't try to cling to anything as who you are. Because what we're taught in society is to go out into the world and be a somebody. Right? You can go out into the world and have accomplishments and you can have goals, but you don't have to identify with any of that as who you are. Because let's just say I go out into the world and let's just say I get a PhD, right? And now I think I am a PhD. I am a doctor, right? And now I'm at a restaurant and someone says, all PhD people are blah, 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 blah. And they're degrading and disparaging people that have PhDs. Well, if you identify with that as who you are, now you're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated. So if you'd like to get to this peace and joy, which is the enlightened mental state, you need to strip away any identification or any clinging to these things as who you are. And it takes the mind time to understand this because we spent so much time grabbing onto things, thinking that this is who we are. Even some people say, I am Buddhist, right? The Buddha was not Buddhist. He was not Buddhist. Jesus Christ was not Christian, right? These are all identities that the mind is trying to adopt, labels that the mind is trying to give itself. And you need to strip away all those labels. And that's where your mind will get more and more peaceful because of that.
And what is the
Yeah, that microphone is impermanent, right? You're verifying the universal truth of impermanence.
Right. Yeah. Then what is the point in reincarnation? And we are nothing. We are nobody.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so remember we talked this weekend about reincarnation, that the Buddha didn't use the word reincarnation. He used the word samsara. Today, people are translating that in some cases to mean reincarnation. But when they're talking about reincarnation, they're talking about a soul that continues on in the world, that is permanent, and that each time this soul is entering into a new body, it's the same individual, just with a different body. And you can see here in just the very first, very most beginning teachings of the Buddha, the idea of a soul contradicts the universal truth of impermanence, and it contradicts the universal truth of non-self. So that's why I shared with you on Sunday that the Buddha never taught reincarnation, because he didn't teach that there is a soul, and he didn't teach that there isn't a soul, because the whole idea of a soul contradicts the universal truth of impermanence and the universal truth of non-self. And that's what we can see in the world around us, that we can identify and verify these particular universal truths. But he did teach samsara, which I would encourage you to think of as the cycle of new existence, because every single time it's a new existence. It's a new body and it's a new mind every single time. So there isn't anything being reborn, even though sometimes people call it the cycle of rebirth. A better way to think of it is the cycle of new existence, because that's the way the Buddha is describing it. But unfortunately, people have been translating it in other ways, but really what it means is the cycle of new existence.
So the spirit is new. I mean, you've heard of past lives and the spirit.
If you could talk to the mic, these people will be able to hear you. We have
Then the spirit is new every time it goes into a new body. It is a new. I mean, it has a history as well. The spirit also has a history, previous lives.
The Buddha didn't teach that there is a spirit or there isn't a spirit. He never describes anything like that.
That's because he probably wasn't aware of it. But I mean, it doesn't mean to say it's not happening. It's not there.
Well, he explained what it takes for you to get to the peace and joy of the enlightened mental state. And it doesn't include any kind of idea of a soul or a spirit or anything like that. What you're doing is you're working on the mind to train the mind.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, we have some more questions coming in. Yep. Go ahead. Yep.
So maybe I missed something, but wouldn't consciousness itself be a sort of permanence then? Because it's being...
No, it's a new consciousness, a new mind every single time. The way you can think about it is like cardboard box A and cardboard box B. Remember we talked about this Sunday, right? So the cardboard boxes are different color, different shape, different texture, and these represent the mind. And inside of each cardboard box, there are contents. And when cardboard box A dissolves, the contents, if there's still contents, it needs to be put into a new cardboard box, and that's the new mind that is formed because of it. But if an individual gets to enlightenment, meaning they've cleaned out their mind and their mind is purified, there's no more contents, so there's no more boxes that are going to be created. But that box isn't who you are. That mind isn't who you are.
What do you call that essence itself?
What's that?
What do you call that essence itself that is put into the box?
Those items are cravings and residual memories. The cravings, desires, attachments, and the residual memories, that's what moves from box to box.
Is that dharma?
No, the Dhamma means teachings. That's what that word means. But there's cravings and residual memories. This is how people can observe their past lives, through having these residual memories from a previous life in this new mind.
Is the symbol behind you, is that the Eightfold Path?
This is called a Dhamma wheel. We're going to talk about this on the tour when we go on Friday. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. More questions?
Yeah, I had one question regarding this feelings or conditioned feelings. Mm-hmm. You said when you're enlightened, you don't experience any of the feelings except happiness. Is that right?
You don't experience any conditioned feelings, meaning that your mind is no longer forming its inner feelings based on some condition, because the mind has been retrained to no longer form its feelings based on external conditions. So you're beyond these conditional experiences where your mind's going up and down and up and down. Your mind is now experiencing the unconditioned mental qualities of peace and calm, serenity, contentedness, and joy. We might call it unconditioned happiness, where the mind doesn't need any condition to be met in order to be happy. Where in the unconditioned mind, in the unenlightened mind, there needs to be certain conditions met. It's like, if my mom and dad do this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, if my children do this, if my life partner does this, then I will be happy. So the amount of happiness that you can have in the unenlightened state becomes less and less and less and less, the more what we call cravings, desires, expectations, and wants that you have. This is why sometimes when people age, they get very old and grumpy, because they have all these expectations of things that they want to occur before they can be happy. But what you're doing on this path to enlightenment is you're purifying the mind, and you're training your mind to no longer form its inner feelings based on these things. So that way you can get to the unconditioned happiness where the mind's always joyful, it's always cheerful, it's always bright. There doesn't need to be any condition met, and the mind is just always experiencing that mental state.
But if you always and only experience happiness, how do you know you're happy?
Because you've already experienced in your past, in this life, what it is like to have conditional happiness. You know what it's like to experience sadness and anger and frustration. You know what it's like to be bored and lonely and experience resentment and jealousy. You've already done that enough. So now when your mind is experiencing complete happiness and it's unconditioned, you'll know, because you know what it was like in the past to experience those things. And now your mind is gradually transitioned to only be experiencing happiness.
So at least you have to have experienced it before them. Yeah.
Yeah, every single person who's born, they will experience sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair. Every single individual who's being born. We wouldn't be born if that wasn't the case. So because we all are born unenlightened, we will experience sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair. But then as we transform our mind and we train our mind, we can get to this enlightened mental state. And now we know that we're experiencing that, because it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years that your mind is experiencing that peace and joy. Your mind doesn't go up and down anymore. It's just completely stable and steady all the time. And you can look back on your previous part of this life and like, wow, thank goodness I did this training, because I don't have to experience all of those conditioned feelings any longer. Okay, I don't see any questions online. Let me just check Facebook. Let's see. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Do you have a question? I just saw you got a mic. Sure, go ahead.
The question is just based on just what you just said about everyone is born unenlightened, right? So, which is true. But in the case of people who've already achieved like stream entry, or they're at the second stage of enlightenment, some other stage of enlightenment, either the fourth or third, they're born, but they're also born unenlightened. But during that lifetime, they will figure out, because of the past work that they've done and the enlightenment stage that they reached in the previous life, they're still born unenlightened, but then during that life, they will somehow pick it up in the new life.
Yeah, if you got to the first or second stage of enlightenment in a previous life, you're still born unenlightened,
right?
And you're not in the first or second stage of enlightenment when you're born.
Yep.
So now, having been born, you will make your way back to the first or second stage, or if you're in the first stage of enlightenment, you'll make your way back to at least that level in your next life. If you were in the second stage of enlightenment when you die, you will make your way to enlightenment in that life. It's just a matter of time before you get there.
Right.
Because your mind has residual memories from your previous lives, and it will help you to be able to get back to those stages of enlightenment and beyond, potentially.
Right, because you gained a lot of wisdom in the previous life, so in the new life, you can, at some point, you will discover that you have that wisdom.
Yeah, you'll be able to use that wisdom
Yeah.
to make your way back to the teachings. That's why oftentimes people who come and learn, sometimes it's just so easy for them to understand the teachings. And I can tell that this person most likely studied these teachings in a previous life, whereas sometimes people just have such a hard time to understand the teachings. And it might be their first time learning the teachings in this life. In no prior lives have they ever learned these teachings. But that person has just as much ability to get to enlightenment in this life as the person who studied in the past. You're welcome. Okay, so no more questions. So one more thing as a building block before I explain to you the Four Noble Truths. Here, this is a definition to help you understand craving, desire, attachment, wants, expectations, holding, grasping, clinging, because we use this in a way that isn't really used in common language, and it's something that you're probably familiar with, but you haven't really defined it in this way before. There's something called craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations. This is where the mind is longing, yearning. This is the unquenchable thirst that the mind has, where it feels like it's pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. The mind's trying to form its inner feelings based on this thing. It's like an unquenchable thirst. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. The mind thinks, if I can just get this thing, everything will be perfect. So the mind might chase money, or it might chase a boyfriend or girlfriend, or it might chase a new job or a house. Those things aren't the problem, because you can have those things and still get to enlightenment. The problem here that the mind is experiencing is this longing, yearning for it, chasing after it. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes, or like a new phone, or a new video game, or new jewelry or something, and you were like, oh, I just got to have that. Oh, I want that so bad. The mind is longing, yearning for it. That's the craving, desire, attachment. The mind's pulling towards it. It's not the object itself. It's the way the mind internally is longing and yearning for the object. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this in your life, where your mind's pulling towards something, just wanting to have that thing? And if I can just get that thing, everything's going to be so great. This is the craving, desire, attachment. Yeah.
I saw a little girl at 7-Eleven today
Mhm.
like that. Mommy, I want that.
Yeah. Mommy, I want that. Yeah, we did that when we were kids, right? Like, mommy, daddy, give me chocolate ice cream. Give me chocolate ice cream. And if we got our chocolate ice cream, oh, it was so great. Oh, it was such a perfect day. But then when it was no longer in our system, we were angry, we were sad. Or if mom or dad said, you can't have that chocolate or ice cream, we were angry or frustrated. So you're going to hear that this craving, desire, attachment, this is the cause of your discontent feelings. So here's where we'll understand that in the Four Noble Truths. The first Noble Truth is explaining the problem. The second Noble Truth is explaining the cause of that problem. The third Noble Truth is explaining the elimination. And the fourth Noble Truth is explaining the complete solution of how to fix it. So the first Noble Truth explaining the problem is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. So discontentedness is the problem. The mind going up and down and up and down. The mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. You'll be happy and excited for a while, but then you'll be sad and frustrated and agitated, feeling stress and anxiety and guilt and shame and fear. But then you'll be bored and lonely and guilty and all these other feelings, shy, embarrassed. This is the mind going up and down and up and down. That's the problem. The first Noble Truth is explaining that. The second Noble Truth is explaining the cause. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples to help you really understand this. And then I'm going to show you how to independently verify this. Okay? So discontentedness, those conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. They are being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wants, the expectations, because the mind wants things to be permanent when in reality you live in an impermanent world. Everything around you is impermanent. Okay, so here's some examples to help you understand this. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got. When you first got together with that new boyfriend and girlfriend, you might have gotten all these pleasant feelings. Oh my goodness, time couldn't be better. This person's showing you affection. They're inviting you out to dinner. You're having great conversations. You're going to the mall. You're going to the park. You might be having intimate contact together. You got this new person in your life who's calling you and checking in on you and seeing how you're doing. Oh, it felt so great. So much pleasant feelings, right? But then over time, you guys got angry and frustrated, irritated with each other, and you broke up. And then you were angry, you were sad or frustrated, you felt lonely or bored maybe, you might have missed this person. It's not because of your love that was causing that. What was causing those discontent feelings is the craving, the desire, the attachment, the mind's holding on, wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, this relationship was always impermanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first, right? And now this relationship is impermanent, right? Or think about grandma and grandpa when they die, or mom or dad or brothers and sisters. You might have grieved when your people close to you have died. You're not a bad person if your mind grieved or you were sad or sorrowful. You haven't done anything wrong. All that is the mind is holding on. It's craving permanence. It's wanting grandma and grandpa to be alive. Essentially, the way the mind functions with this craving, desire, attachment is if it gets what it wants, then it's happy, it's excited, it gets those pleasant feelings. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like anger, sadness, and frustration. So as long as grandma and grandpa are alive, you're happy. But when they die, you're frustrated or agitated or angry or sorrowful or grieving. If you've ever been to a wedding and the people around you were crying or grieving, or if you were crying or grieving, maybe it was your brother or sister, or maybe a close friend or coworker, getting married, going off into the world with someone else, people sometimes grieve. That's my brother. That's my sister. How dare they take them away from me, right? This is the mind craving permanence, wanting this person to be permanent. This is a joyful situation. Hey, they found a new person. They're going off into the world and creating a life for themselves. But the mind is holding on. So mom and dad or brothers and sisters or other people might be crying or grieving at a wedding. Or if you ever remember getting dropped off at university or getting dropped off at grade school, or if you have kids and you drop them off at grade school, you see that they're really discontent. They're crying, they're upset perhaps because their mind's holding on. I thought mom and dad were permanent. Now I've got to go out into this world at 3 years old all by myself. What are you doing to me, mom and dad? Right? Their mind's holding on and they're craving this permanence. It's not their love that's causing that. I'll give you some other examples that don't involve relationships because this might help you. If you had a brand new car and you saved up a lot of money for this brand new car, this is your dream car, and you drove it off the parking lot of the dealership and you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. If you're frustrated or angry in that situation, it's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. They're not causing you to be frustrated. What's causing the frustration or the anger is the mind is craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is impermanent. But the mind's lack of wisdom of the universal truth of impermanence, it wants everything to be permanent. So now when you see that scratch, you get frustrated or angry or irritated. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise here, because we aspire to not scratch people's car. When we walk through a parking lot, we attempt to not scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that our car is going to get scratched. It's only a matter of time that the paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn perhaps, because this car is impermanent. But if the mind is craving for it to be permanent, when it experiences this change, it's going to be frustrated or irritated or annoyed. Because one of the ways to say this is, yes, that the mind craves permanence. But another way to say it is the mind does not like impermanence. The unenlightened mind doesn't like change. Think back to any time that things have been changing in your life. Even if you chose for that change to occur, that was probably really challenging for you. When you were changing jobs, when you were changing living locations, when you are changing relationships, when things start changing in your life, your mind doesn't really like it, even if you implemented that change on your own and you made those decisions yourself. So what I'm sharing with you is your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. What we tend to think in the unenlightened state with our lack of wisdom is that it's other people who are causing us to experience feelings. We think that other people are causing us to be angry. We think other people are causing us to be frustrated or angry or annoyed. And because of that lack of wisdom of the second noble truth, when your anger is arising, you might be pushing people away out of your life, or you might be pushing a situation out of your life. This is called aversion. You might have pushed friends or family members out of your life, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. But you can see that didn't solve the problem, because you still get angry, you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. If you push that person out of your life, if they were the true cause of your anger, you'd be peaceful after that, right? But you're not. You still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. So you know that that person wasn't the problem. They still might have done something that was unwise, but pushing them away out of your life isn't going to solve your anger. It's not going to solve your frustration. Or the second thing you might do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people, because the mind firmly believes that something external is causing this anger. So you might be bitter, harsh, and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. It's like, "Rrr," and the mind is trying to get its cravings fulfilled. It's trying to fear this person into doing things your way, right? Or the third thing you might do is you might start putting your expectations on people, trying to control people and force them to do things your way. I'm sure you've probably been in arguments before with people where you've been adamantly trying to convince people that they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry and frustrated, that they needed to do it your way. That's what the mind does, is it tries to put expectations on people because it's craving that permanence and it's wanting everybody to do things a certain way. So as long as you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you'll tend to push people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and you'll put your expectations on people, trying to control them. And because of this, you can't live harmoniously with all people in your life. It's only a matter of time before someone does something that you disagree with, and now you're either going to push them away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or put your expectations on them. So there is a better way that the Buddha teaches you. But before we get into that, let's be sure you have time to independently verify the second noble truth. Think about a recent time when you've been angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. It might have been this morning, might have been yesterday, it might have been last week. Think about that situation with these fresh eyes, because what I'm sharing with you is your mind craves permanence. You're wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get what you want, you get happy. And if you don't get what you want, you get angry or sad or frustrated. Think about that situation with these fresh eyes, because at that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else for what you were experiencing. But now look at it, and wherever you were angry or sad or frustrated, there was something your mind wanted. And if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you were angry, sad, or frustrated, or some other discontent feeling. You should be able to look at it and see for yourself how your mind was craving. It was longing, it was yearning. Again, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. Everyone who's been born has experienced the exact same thing. But you need to be able to see this and independently verify it so that you know that it's true. Because right now you might be believing that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated. And if you can't see it, let me know. Because I've had students share with me before. They say things like, David, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. And I came home and my wife had this craft project all over the house. And I walked in and I got angry and frustrated with her. How did my mind cause this? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be frustrated? He said, no, you went to work with an expectation that your house was going to look exactly the same when you came home. You experienced impermanence. That's all you experienced, is that your house looked a certain way when you went to work. Your mind was craving, longing, yearning, wanting that permanence. And when you came home, it looked different. That's all that it was. Because this house can't look exactly the same permanently. It's not possible. So your wife has this craft project all over the house, but that's not permanent either. She will put it away. And maybe you help her put it away. But if your mind craves for your house to look a certain way permanently, yeah, when it doesn't look that way, you'll be frustrated. You'll be agitated. But it's your own mind that's causing that because it's craving for this house to look a certain way permanently. And that's just not possible because you live in an impermanent world. Right? So if you have a certain situation that you just can't see how your mind is craving permanence, let me know and I will help you when we get to the question period, okay? So this is the second noble truth. The Buddha is helping you to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And the beauty in this is that because your mind is causing these feelings, that's why you can eliminate them. If it was everybody else who was causing these feelings, you'd never be able to eliminate them because you can't train 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. It's just not possible. So the beauty in this and understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings is you can actually eliminate them. The way that you eliminate them is in the third noble truth. The third noble truth is explaining that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating cravings, desires, attachments. If you can eliminate the cause, which the cause of these feelings are craving, desire, attachments, if you can eliminate the cause, you will eliminate the effect. So if you can train your mind to eliminate its longing, yearning, and chasing after things and forming your inner feelings based on something, then you can eliminate the discontent feelings. So you can come to the middle where the mind is gradually pursuing things as a goal, objective, or interest, and it's not forming its inner feelings on whether you get what you want or not. But the mind needs to be trained how to do this. And that's the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth is explaining the complete solution. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete perfect plan that's going to guide you in how to eliminate your cravings, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after things, wanting things to be a certain way. So it's learning the Eightfold Path and training in that day by day that's going to gradually transform your mind. And it starts with right view. That's the foundation. What right view is to have the right view of the world, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're having. As long as you blame other people for the feelings you're having, you'll never solve this problem because they're not the actual problem. It's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So this path starts with right view, that you can understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Then we move on to right intention. But let me pause here and see if you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths. Is there anything you guys would like to ask? Looks like we have some questions coming
in. My question is, maybe I got lost somewhere just now. What is the connection between three universal truths and Four Noble Truths?
The connection is that you need to know the universal truth of impermanence, that the world is impermanent, because that's the problem that the mind, or that's the cause of the problem, that the mind is craving permanence. And if you continue to think that the world should be permanent and you don't realize that it is impermanent, then your mind will continue to crave permanence. And then the second noble truth is explaining discontentedness, that is the actual problem that the Buddha discovered. And the third universal truth is explaining one aspect of shedding your craving and clinging, because the mind's craving and clinging and holding on to this body, wanting that to be permanent, or clinging to your self-identity, wanting that to be permanent.
And so three universal truths and Four Noble Truths, they are similar, or
they're connected to each other because the three universal truths form the foundation in order to understand the Four Noble Truths. If you didn't understand the world was impermanent, when I explained to you that your mind is craving permanence, you're like, okay, big deal. I'm craving permanence. I would like things to be permanent. Yeah, what's the problem? Well, you live in an impermanent world. That's the issue.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. So the question I have like two questions, and they're completely dissimilar to each other. One is like the craving part of it. If and this is gonna probably sound very stupid, but so if like a teacher like Buddha, right, or you, when you achieve a certain level of wisdom, I mean, he became Buddha, you're at certain level of wisdom, then the part of
It's still on. It's still on, I think. Oh, okay. The mic's impermanent. We kind of knew that, right? It's working. We got some new batteries on the charger up here.
Yeah, so I was just like, what I was asking was that, like, so part of being a Buddha, as we learned yesterday, was like, that him like making those teachings available and teaching as many people and bringing as many people to enlightenment. You have a similar goal. Having those as goals, is there a desire attached to it that this is what I want to do, this is what I like seek to do, and this is my goal and this is my desire to kind of teach people and have them achieve a certain level of enlightenment? Or is that not a desire? It is just you do it regardless, and it's like there's no craving attached to it. I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, you've got to understand what a craving, desire, attachment is. It's the longing, yearning for it, and wanting it, and expecting it. That's what we're talking about. But what an individual can do is you can have an interest, you can have an objective, and you gradually work towards this, and you have a goal that you gradually work towards, and you're not forming your feeling on it. But the way that the unenlightened mind works with its lack of wisdom is you're probably forming goals which you think are goals, but they're actually craving, desire, attachment. If you accomplish this thing, you're happy, and if you don't get it, you're sad. That's not a goal. That is a craving, desire, attachment. What a goal is something you can gradually work towards. And if you accomplish it, great. And if you don't accomplish it, that's fine too. But you gradually work towards it without forming your inner feelings on it. That's what you can do in the world. You can practice this middle way. So if I show up here and there's 100 people, okay, great. I'll teach the 100 people. If I show up here and there's nobody here, okay, that's fine too. I just go home and help other people that are online. But my mind isn't craving for a certain number of people to be here, right? So you can have goals, objectives like sharing the teachings into the world and it not be a craving, desire, attachment. But there could be somebody else who does want to share the teachings in the world, and it is a craving for them in their mind, their longing, yearning for it. So it's not the outside thing. It's not the object that is the craving, desire, attachment. I'll give you this example to help you understand this. If I was going on a hike and I had a liter of water in my car, and I drive to the trail, I get out on the trail, I'm 30 minutes down the trail, and I'm like, my water, I forgot my water. And now you run back to your car, twisting your ankle, slinging open the door, grabbing your water. Water. Thank goodness, my water, right? In this situation, the person's mind is unstable. It's shaken up because they're attached. They're craving to have their water with them permanently. But there can be a person out on the trail, 30 minutes down the trail, like, I forgot my water. I should go back and get that. I'm going to be out here for like 6 or 8 hours, and I'm going to need some water. And now you just turn around and calmly go back to your car, get your water, and then you continue on the trail, right? Same exact thing, the water, right? But the person's mind was functioning differently. The first one had a craving, desire, attachment. The second one did not. So it's not about whether you choose to share the teachings, since you use that example. It's not about whether you choose to share the teachings of whether it's a desire or not. That's not what determines whether it's a craving, desire, attachment. It's how the mind functions. Is the mind longing, yearning, and forming its inner feelings on this thing or not?
Hello. Yeah. Okay, so thank you about that. The second one was about self. So if we have a conversation and I tell someone or someone tells me that you need to change, or you need to do this differently, or you need to do this, like, this is what you need to gain, this is what you need to achieve, or whatever. then at that point, if I've achieved that sense of understanding or like a deep understanding of no self, then who is doing what? Like what, like, am I at that point should I care about like that? I don't need to change. Who am I? I'm nothing. Who are you telling this to? Right. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. The first thing I'll share is that it's really unwise to go around and give people unsolicited guidance and tell people that they need to change. That's the first thing. So in that example, it would be really unwise to do that. But if your question is, who's doing what if I'm working on this inner change? So this mind is working on getting trained, right? So there's a body, there's a mind, and then the combination of these two things, the Buddha refers to it as a person. So the person, or some people refer to it as the observer, the person is looking at the mind and saying, hey, you need some training. And the mind's like, no, I don't. I'm going to stay here having ego. I'm going to stay here doing all these unwise, unwholesome things. Don't pay any attention to me. And your person's like, no. You're not pleased. You're not peaceful. You're not joyful. You need some training. And the mind's like, no. Don't train me. Don't train me. It's kind of like a wild animal, right? The mind doesn't really want to be trained. It's not interested in that. But the person, which is the combination of the body and the mind, that's what's doing the training, is the person. But that still isn't you or who you are as a person. You need to just drop all of that and understand that this being is interested in getting training, and now this person is choosing to train the mind.
Okay, let me think a little bit about it. Thank you so much.
That's a good idea. Other questions?
Hi. What about disrespectful situations and people? And if there is some violence or people are aggressive to you, how can it be related to all this that we are talking about?
Yeah, so if someone's being disrespectful in their speech or their actions, and you get upset about that, that's because your mind's craving for everyone to be respectful. Because you live in an impermanent world and not everyone's going to be respectful. But the mind's going to crave that. Particularly when you have this personal existence view. It's like, who are you to talk to me like that? Right? The mind has this me. There's a me here. And what the Buddha says is there's no you there. There is no you. But the mind, with its ego and its arrogance and this conceit and this personal existence view, when it has that person functioning in a disrespectful way, the mind's craving permanent respectfulness, and now you'll get agitated and frustrated. So that's where, if you get rid of personal existence view and you get rid of this conceit and you get rid of this craving for everybody to function a certain way, when someone is being disrespectful, you can just remain peaceful and joyful. Doesn't mean you're going to stay around this person. You might choose to walk away, but your mind will be content. Your mind will be peaceful. You won't be shaken up by it.
If there is some violence, I mean, if someone comes to just beat you or...
Same thing, right? Like, say somebody, it's very rare that this will occur, but people sometimes use this example. Like, say somebody walks up to you and just punches you in the face. They've harmed this physical body, right? They've caused physical harm, but they can't cause you to be discontent. If you become discontent in that situation, let's just say you feel pain on your face where someone punched you. Now you feel the pain, and now you're frustrated and angry about that pain. That's the mind craving permanent comfort of the body. And this body can't be permanently comfortable. It's just not possible. Even when you're enlightened, you're still going to experience some degree of physical pain. It's going to be very muted, but it's going to be some degree of physical pain. So what the Buddha is going to teach you, and we're going to get to this after our break, is the moral conduct. And if you practice good, wholesome moral conduct, you'll never be in a situation where somebody's just going to punch you in the face, because there's a whole lot of decisions that we make that lead to any particular result that we experience. And if we make wise decisions, we're not going to be in that situation where we do get punched in the face. So if someone's is coming at you with violence, they can't cause you to be discontent, but they can cause physical harm to the body. And then that's where your wisdom needs to come in, where you make wise decisions to get away from that situation. But if your mind is all shaken up and unsteady and unstable, you're going to tend to make unwise decisions, and you're not going to be able to get to that safe place that you need to get to. So the Buddha is teaching you how to maintain your calmness and composure so that no matter what's happening around you, you can make wise decisions in every situation. Mm-hmm. Okay. You have more? Yep.
Hello. Sorry, I'm just still thinking about the first one that I asked about the craving part of it. So, like we won't know like how Buddha would have felt if he was not able to disseminate his teachings, because part of the criteria of being a Buddha was that he will like guide countless people to enlightenment and share his teachings, independently discovered teachings. But we don't know how he would have felt. But about you, for example, if I don't know in what circumstance that could happen, but if it happens that somehow you're not able to teach and you cannot get the wisdom out or everything that you teach, somehow, I don't know what kind of situation that would be, but if it happened, you would be perfectly content.
Yeah. Because it's happened before. When I first started teaching here, people didn't know I was teaching, and I would show up sometimes and there'd be nobody here. It happened multiple times when I first started teaching. And I wasn't frustrated, I wasn't annoyed, I wasn't agitated or anything like that. I'm just like, all right, nobody's here. This is impermanence. Sometimes there's people here, sometimes there's not people here. Now, so many people know that I'm teaching, there's always people here whenever I teach. But when I first started, that wasn't the case. And it was just impermanence. That's all it was. So that's how I know my mind doesn't have a craving to share these teachings, because I experienced that impermanence and my mind wasn't discontent in that situation.
Yeah, but I guess what I was saying was that was then in the past, and now like things have changed. But if in the future, like I'm saying, that I can't think of a circumstance in which that would happen, but if it happens that for some reason going forward, you're not able to.
Same thing. I know my mind doesn't have a craving to teach, because I've been in multiple situations where if there was a craving, it would have got triggered and I would have seen discontentedness, because discontentedness is the red light on the dashboard of your car that's alerting you that you have a craving, desire, attachment. So when you train your mind enough, you'll have mindfulness and awareness of mind. You can observe your mind. You can see that you don't get conditioned pleasant feelings when there's 100 people here, and you don't get painful feelings when there's one, right? You teach the class exactly the same, whether it's 100 people or one person. And that's how you can observe your own mind, and you can know for yourself that you don't have a craving, desire, attachment in this situation. Example that you're giving.
Right. Okay, let me think about this a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next one, which is right intention. Okay. Let me find my pointer. There we go. So we're going to move on to this right intention. It won't take me as long to teach right intention. It's just that first one. Right view takes a long time to teach it. So let me teach you this, and then we're going to take a break. In what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So there's three things that the Buddha is teaching you here, is to have the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. One of the ways to think about an intention is it's a thinking or a thought. So it's right thinking or right thought. You would like to have the intention of renunciation, which the intention of renunciation is being willing to let go and give up your false ideas, your false beliefs, your opinions and views, your unwholesomeness, the things that are unwholesome, because there's certain things in your mind right now that are false beliefs. There's certain unwholesome things that you're doing right now. You might be talking harsh and bitter and hostile to some of the people around you. You might be doing other unwholesome things, and you're going to need to be willing to let that go. If you're not willing to let that go, there's no way you can make any progress on the path. One of the first false beliefs that you need to let go of is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated or sad. But the way that these teachings work is you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs, right? What you're doing is you're bringing in wisdom, that you're independently verifying the truth. And then when you bring in this wisdom and you see, whoa, this wisdom conflicts with my beliefs of things that I've believed my entire life. And now you need to be willing to let go of those false beliefs. And now you've got wisdom. You understand that it's your own mind that's causing these discontent feelings. So you're going to need to be willing to let go. That's what renunciation is. Let go of your false beliefs, your opinions and views, your unwholesomeness, and things like this. If you weren't practicing right intention and the intention of renunciation, you would have a closed mind and you would say, hey, everything I'm doing now is perfect. I don't need to change anything about what I'm doing in life. That would be the opposite of the intention of renunciation. Then there's the intention of non-ill will. In English, whenever you have a double negative, it's a positive. So non-ill will is goodwill. So this is the intention of goodwill or loving kindness. The opposite of that would be the bitterness, the harshness, the animosity, the anger, the hatred, the frustration. So you need to transform the mind and practice the opposite of that, where you have the intention of goodwill towards all beings, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, where you have the intention of loving kindness towards all beings. Then you would like to practice the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested and incapable of causing harm to others. As long as you cause harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. Remember, you can't cause discontentedness to other people. Just like your mind causes your own discontentedness, everyone else's mind causes their own discontentedness too. So if mom or dad or brothers or sisters or other people are blaming you for their anger or frustration, that's not the truth. That's wrong view. But you can cause someone harm. Causing someone harm is to cause harm to their material possessions, to their physical body, or to their reputation. You can cause harm to others. And anytime you cause harm to a living being, this harm is going to come back to you. So you would like to have the intention or the thinking or the thought that you're disinterested and incapable of causing harm to others. And this is what's going to help promote the wisdom of the mind to now practice the intention of, or right intention. So essentially, the summary here is that right view is understanding the Four Noble Truths, which includes accepting responsibility for your own intentions, your feelings, your speech, your actions. Everything that you experience is coming from your own decisions. If you blame other people for the things that you're experiencing, that's wrong view. So to practice right view on a day-to-day basis is to now start looking inward. Where in the past, when you're angry and frustrated, you might look external to blame somebody and figure out who to blame for what you're experiencing. Now, what you would like to start doing if you're going to practice right view is to start looking inward. Sit down with your mind and have a conversation. What is it that you're craving? What are you longing, yearning for? Start looking inward. And where you have trouble discovering this, you can reach out to me as your teacher, and I'm pleased to help you try to figure out what are your cravings, desires, attachments. You can ask questions in classes. You can post in our Facebook group. You can send a private message. You can schedule personal guidance, and I will help you to uncover your cravings, desires, attachments. Because once you build this skill to look inward, you'll be very good at it. You'll be able to look inward rather than trying to blame other people. So you're going to need to accept responsibility and accountability for your feelings. Your feelings are being caused by your own mind, not by anything external. Then right intention is to practice the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go your false beliefs, your false opinions, your false views, and the unwholesome things that you're doing. And you would like to practice the intention of non-ill will, or practicing loving kindness, where you have goodwill, an interest in seeing all beings be well. And you practice the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. So this makes up the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. Any questions on this? Yes, sir. You guys got two mics. Try both, see which one works. At break time, we've got batteries up here in the charger and some in the box.
False beliefs. Mm-hmm. We've been lied to. about history, our history, religion.
Mm-hmm.
And so where do we start? Where are we? You know, this is what I find so confusing. You know, get rid of the false beliefs. What is real, what is true, and what is not true.
Yeah, right now you don't know what's true or false, and that's why you still experience anger and frustration and sadness and all these other things, because the mind doesn't have complete wisdom about the natural laws around you. So you're not going to be able to sit down right now and figure out, hold on, figure out everything that you currently believe that is false. But instead, what you do is you progress on this path, gradually, slowly but surely, learning the wisdom that you need to learn. And as you gain that wisdom through learning intellectually, through reflecting to independently verify, and then practicing the teachings, when you got that wisdom, now you see, whoa, I got to let go of this false belief. And one of the first false beliefs is that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated or sad. These feelings that you experience for a long time, we walk around thinking that it's other people that are causing us to feel these things. When today, perhaps you've been able to have a breakthrough and be able to see for yourself in a way that you can independently verify that your mind has been believing that for so long, but now you know the truth, and now you can maintain that truth. So as you go forward on this path, you're going to learn thing after thing after thing after thing that you can now independently verify, and that's where you'll know, like, I've got wisdom now, and now your mind can be stable and steady because you have the wisdom about the world. So all those things that you were taught in the past, whatever they were, that your mind might have false beliefs about, you'll uncover that as you go forward on the path. And you just need to maintain that intention of letting those things go rather than holding on to them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Question? Yep. Got one that's working.
About the right intention, and there is one thing says non-ill will. So does it necessarily mean loving and kindness? Is there anything in the middle that I don't have interest in this? I don't hope it to be bad or good. I just stay neutral. I have no interest. Is there that kind of status?
What the intention of non-ill will is to have goodwill. And goodwill is active goodwill towards others. It doesn't mean that you do anything. There's no action behind that. It's just the mental state that you're cultivating, because that's what's going to form the basis of all the other teachings, that you have active goodwill towards other beings. You would like to see others be well. And that's something that you're going to need to cultivate in the middle, or in the mind. And that is the middle. Right? On one side, you would be hating others. You would be vindictive and resentful towards others. That's one side. The other side is you could care less about what happens to other people. That's the other side. The middle is, I have a genuine interest in seeing others be well. That's the middle way. And that's what's going to promote the peace and joy in your mind.
Oh, so I misunderstood the middle part. I thought the loving and kindness is the other side, other than hatred towards people or things. I thought like holding no interest in those kind of things, or the middle way.
Yeah, no, the other side would be being disinterested in anybody and care less what happens to people. That would be the opposite of being vindictive and angry and hostile and bitter towards people, versus I could care less what happens to people. I'm just in this world for myself. Who cares what happens to anyone else? The middle is having a genuine interest in seeing everyone be well, but also understanding that people's wellness is their responsibility. It's not your responsibility, but you can maintain in your mind that you would like to see others be well, while understanding that they're responsible for their own wellness.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that's everything for this first section. When we come back from break, I'm going to teach you the moral conduct section and the mental discipline section. The moral conduct section is there. You guys are going to see, it's going to help you to see this cause and effect relationship about how when we do things in a certain way, it produces certain effects. The Buddha doesn't ever give you any rules or commandments or anything like that. He's going to this cause and effect relationship and how the way you function affects your mind and affects people around you, so that you can practice these natural laws in a way that you can be harmonious with all beings. So I'll teach you that after a break. It's now basically 11 o'clock. Let's get back at 11:20, and that'll give us an opportunity to start with the moral conduct section. So thank you for your questions, and I'll see you guys after break. Okay? See you in a little bit. All right, I'm going to pick this up where we left off, moving through the wisdom section and now moving into the moral conduct section. We're going to talk about right speech, right action, right livelihood, and then after that, we're going to move into the mental discipline section. Whenever you're learning the moral conduct of the teachings of the Buddha, it's important to understand what he's teaching you is cause and effect, or action and result. He's teaching you the natural law of karma. Some people call it karma, but this is the Pali word, is the word karma. The Sanskrit word is karma. Most people are familiar with that word. What this word karma is it means cause and effect, or action and result. It means the results of your decisions. When you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome results, or wholesome karma. When you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome results, or unwholesome karma. So there's nothing mystical or magical with the natural law of karma. It's not punishments and rewards or anything like that. It's just the results of your decisions. It's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. And when you lack wisdom of these natural laws, you're going to tend to make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results for you, or unwholesome karma. But when you make wise decisions, that's where you'll experience wholesome results, or wholesome karma. So what the Buddha is teaching you in the moral conduct section is how to make wise decisions around your moral conduct. Because while you can't cause other people to be angry or discontent, you can create an environment which people's cravings get triggered. And now when their cravings get triggered, your mind's going to have to experience this anger and hostility coming from this person. So remember from the Four Noble Truths that what the Buddha is teaching you in the Eightfold Path is how to eliminate your cravings, your desires, your longing, your yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. So you can see this here in right speech. What he says is, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So each one of these is based in craving, desire, attachment. There's a longing, there's a yearning that your mind has in order to practice these things. So if you're lying, and we've all lied when we were growing up as kids, we all lied. There was something we wanted. There was something we were craving. And if we told the truth, we wouldn't have got what we wanted. So that's why we lied. So there's the underlying craving whenever someone's lying. So if you're going to extinguish your cravings, desires, attachments, getting to peace and joy, you're going to need to eliminate your lying. Not only for that reason, but also when you're lying, people are going to find out those lies. People are going to discover those lies. And then they're going to see you as unreliable and undependable, and that you're not trustworthy. And now this is going to affect you, the cause and effect. Right? Because your karma is that if you're going around lying, people aren't going to trust you, and now your personal professional relationships will struggle. When there's that great project coming up at work, your boss isn't going to think about staffing you on it because you're unreliable, you're undependable. Or if you've ever done a lot of lying, you know that it really taxed your mind to have to figure out what you said to one person versus another versus another. Your mind was rapidly trying to figure out, how do I keep my lies straight? Right? So how could you ever get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you're continuing to lie? So you're going to need to get to the point where you're always telling the truth, and then you don't have craving underneath of that, and your mind can be at ease because you're not having to figure out what you said to one person versus the other. Then whenever someone is slandering, there's an underlying craving there. There's a longing, a yearning. It's, I want to look good in front of other people, so I'm going to push down other people and make them look bad through slander and gossip, and then I'll look better. It's kind of like walking into a dark room and everybody's got a candle, and it's like, I'm going to put out that person's candle so that my candle will shine brighter. But no, we would like everybody's candle to be shining. No need to put out someone else's candle. Well, if you're gossiping and slandering, the cause and effect of this is that at the height of this, you can be murdered, right? If you go out damaging someone's reputation, you can be murdered. It happens all the time. You can look at investigative reporters. You can see that when they get on the news and they start slandering people, next thing you know, they end up dead, right? I'm not explaining to you the way the world should be. I'm explaining to you the way the world is. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you. This is the way the world is. It's the natural law of karma, that if you go out into the world causing harm to someone's reputation, they're going to want to harm you, right? So at the height of this, you can actually get murdered. At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering with your friends and family members, when your back is turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about about you. It's only a matter of time. So if you don't like people gossiping and slandering about you, it's best that you don't gossip and slander about other people. Then when there's harsh speech, there's a certain craving there. You're wanting something. So you're harsh and bitter and hostile towards people. So if you're going to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, your longing, your yearning, you're going to need to learn how to speak gentle and using gentle speech. So if you go around being harsh and bitter and hostile with people, it's going to drive people away from you, and you're not going to be able to have harmonious relationships. What frivolous speech is, this is where there's an underlying craving to just talk and talk and talk and talk. It's like pointless talk, idle chatter. It's just like yada, 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 yada. If you've ever done this, or if you've ever known someone that's done this, it's like, oh my goodness, like when is this person going to stop talking, right? It's just like, it's not even a conversation. It's broadcast. This person is broadcasting to you for like 15, 20, 30 minutes and you're not even talking, right? So there's no conversation. So if you're doing that, it's coming from your own craving, and you're going to find that it's going to hinder you from having harmonious relationships with others. So the Buddha is teaching you how to have harmonious relationships with the people around you. And by not lying, by not slandering, by not having harsh speech, by not having frivolous speech, this will promote more harmony in your relationships. But then there's a deeper level teaching called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And this integrates into the Eightfold Path. And ultimately, you would like to get up and running on the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. If you need to work on these 4 things, work on those. Start with those. That's going to help you. But then in more detail, you would like to work on these, where you're speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the proper time is making sure you're not interrupting people, because you don't like it when people are interrupting you, so other people aren't going to like that either, right? There's an underlying craving there. It's like, oh, I just want to talk. Will this person just stop talking so I can jump in and talk? The mind just wants to jump in and jump in and jump in. It's not patient to just wait. Right? So speaking at the proper time is making sure you don't interrupt people. The second aspect of that is making sure your mind's prepared to talk. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated or annoyed, it's not the proper time to talk, because what's going to come out of your mouth is anger and frustration. You're going to damage your relationship. And the third aspect of this is making sure that the other person's mind is prepared to talk. Because if they're angry and they're frustrated, it doesn't matter how calm you are, it's not going to work. This person, you're not going to be able to get anything through their mind. You're not going to be able to have a decent conversation. So it's not the proper time to talk. So that's the 3 aspects of speaking at the proper time. Making sure you're not interrupting, make sure your mind's prepared to talk, and make sure the other person's mind is prepared to talk. Then speaking the truth, that's the same one as up here, that you would like to always tell the truth. Not only not telling a deliberate lie, but making sure you're not spreading conspiracy theories and just kind of innuendo and things that you haven't actually verified for yourself. No need to be out there just kind of spreading false truths about things that are in the world. Make sure you're always speaking the truth. Speaking gently, this is about your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. You need to really pay attention to this. And if you speak English, you're going to need to pay attention to it in that language. But other languages that you speak, you're going to need to pay attention to it in those languages too, because those languages may or may not have the softness that you would like to be able to practice. If you look at the Thai people, when they talk very gentle with each other. There's all kinds of words in the Thai language that ensures the other person knows that we're speaking with politeness and respect and gentleness. We have all these extra words that we include in our conversation to make sure the person knows we're being gentle with them. So your language, depending on what languages you speak, you're going to have to look at those and see what those words are. In English, you might use words like sir and ma'am, or please and thank you, and things like this. So you're going to need to interject some gentleness that you might not be speaking with right now. You're going to need to bring in some gentleness in the way that you speak, paying attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. Then speaking beneficially is about being clear and concise in the way that you speak. It's not necessarily about the topic, it's about the method in which you speak, right? If all of us were on a project team and we needed to go talk to our boss and brief them on the project, we would like to be clear and concise about how we speak with this person. Whereas if we're just rambling around and kind of not really organized in our thoughts, that person has to work a lot harder to understand us. Whereas if we're clear and concise, we can practice speaking beneficially. And now we're going to have much better results in our day-to-day life. Then here you can see speaking with a mind of loving kindness. Okay, speaking with a mind of loving kindness is having that genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. The opposite of that would be inner hate. If you speak with inner hate, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So remember, what the Buddha is teaching you here is the cause and effect, or the action and result. He's teaching you the natural law of karma. These aren't rules or commandments. He's showing you that universally in the world, that if you speak this way with different people, you're going to have wholesome results or wholesome karma. And you can take something like this and you can independently verify it, because you can look at times in your life where you didn't practice this. Look at the conversations that didn't go well for you, and you can see that you and or the other person, you weren't practicing this. Because remember, these are natural laws that affect you, whether you're aware of them or not. You weren't speaking at the proper time, perhaps. Maybe you weren't speaking the truth. Maybe you weren't speaking gentle. Maybe you weren't speaking beneficially. Or maybe you weren't speaking with a mind of loving kindness. And because of that, the conversation didn't go well. And you might have even lost a friend, or you damaged a relationship. But then look at the other side of this, because you have been in conversations that have gone well, right? Like maybe at break time, you guys just had some great conversations with each other and it went well. And you can look at this and you can see like, yep, we were speaking at the proper time. What we said is true. It was gentle, it was beneficial, and it was with the mind of loving kindness. Because again, remember, these natural laws are affecting you whether you're aware of them or not. So you haven't been aware of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, but in some cases you've been using them and things have been going well for you in those situations. So now what you do in order to practice this is now you consciously remember what these are. You internalize these, and now you start practicing them more and more in all your daily life. You can't just snap your fingers and go out there and do this perfectly. You're not going to be able to do that, particularly in relationships where people are really close to you, like your parents, your life partner, your siblings, your children. You will struggle the most because you have attachment in those situations. You have craving, desire, attachment. You have wants and expectations. But slowly but surely, you can practice these and get better and better at this. Dial this in closer and closer, because as you do, you're going to be establishing what's called barami. This is a Thai word. The word barami, it means the one who people listen to. Okay? In Thailand, if you live in a village, there's typically some village elders that have barami, the one who people listen to. People in the village know that if you have an issue, if you have a challenge, go talk to the village elders, because they're very successful in life. They have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. And when I say they're very successful in life, I don't mean financially successful necessarily. What I mean is they have successful relationships. They have harmonious relationships with the people around them, because that's what it means to be successful, is to have harmonious relationships. Anybody can go out in the world and make money. It doesn't mean that you have harmonious relationships. To be successful in life, you need harmonious relationships. So if you're interested in harmonious relationships, if you're interested in being the one who people listen to, you're going to need to establish barami. And the way that you do that is by practicing these teachings. If you're practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech over the period of months and years, the people around you will realize that you're not causing harm in the way that you speak. And more people will look to you as the one who people listen to. They will look at you as wise, because they know whenever they're around you, you're not causing harm through your speech. So you can dial this in and pay close attention to it, and you can get better and better at this. Okay? You can consciously learn these, commit them to your memory, and then practice them. In the book, this first book that I encourage you guys to get, either download it from our website for free, take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon. You can get it there. In this book, I go through all of this in detail and I document it very closely, because you can cause a lot of harm through your speech. And while during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was called right speech, we might think of this as right communication. because we need to have all our communication using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. We have text messages, social media, email, all these different things that didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. So we can think of this as right communication. Because if we went into a job interview and we like knocked it out of the park in our speech, but then they got on our social media and they saw we were bitter and harsh and hostile, you're probably not going to get the job. Or if you really get angry and frustrated and you go over to your keyboard and you start pounding on your keyboard to write out an email and you hit send, it wasn't the proper time to be communicating. So instead of hitting send, hit save. Come back to that a few hours later, a few days later, and look at it and see if it's wise to send that email or not. Because you're not interested in putting out communication when it's not the proper time to communicate, right? So you're going to need to pay attention to these 5 factors of well-spoken speech in all your communication. And in this book, not only do I share the details of this, but I give you this little shortcut. You're going to need more than just this little shortcut. But in the meantime, between now and the time that you solidify the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in your mind, you might remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. If you can remember to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful with the people around you and the way that you communicate with them, that's going to really help you. But ultimately, you're going to need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That's what's going to ultimately help you to fully train your mind and get to enlightenment. But if you can at least remember polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, if you're like you're in a stuck, you're maybe in your boss's office or you're talking to your mom or something like this, and you can't quite remember what the 5 factors of well-spoken speech are, remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. So you might decide to read that entire section in the book. It's in chapter 5. Then there's right action. The Buddha says, "In what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action." So here he's giving you 3 bodily actions that are very impactful. And if you chose to do these, it's going to cause harm to others, and this harm is going to come back to you. So he's helping you to be able to see that you need to pay attention to your bodily actions and how you interact in the world and ensure that you're not causing harm to others. He's not giving you an exhaustive list. Notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. Well, if you know this step, if you know what he's teaching you, which is right action, not causing harm through your bodily actions, you know it's unwise to walk up to someone and punch them in the face, because the cause and effect relationship of that is that they're probably going to punch you back, or they might pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family might come attack you. So the Buddha's not giving you an exhaustive list here. Notice he doesn't say, don't drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees. Well, planes didn't even exist during the lifetime of the Buddha, so he couldn't have given you an exhaustive list. He's giving you 3 really big, impactful ones, and then you need to figure out all the others, because there's other things here that you could cause harm with this body as well. So here, he's just giving you 3 really impactful ones. I like to focus in on this one just for a moment. We're going to learn the 5 precepts tomorrow, which plugs into this and gives you much more illuminating language. Here, he's just summarizing it, but notice here where he says refraining from sexual misconduct. Someone might say, well, what is sexual misconduct? Well, in the 5 precepts tomorrow, you're going to see the detail of where he explains all of these things, not just sexual misconduct, but all of them, right? He's going to give you much more illuminating language. This is kind of like just pointing to the 5 precepts. But I'd just like to give you a heads up about sexual misconduct, that the Buddha doesn't include same-gender relationships in his sexual misconduct. He talks about things like having sex with minors, having sex without consent, like rape and things like that, having sex outside of relationships that you're currently in. So if you prefer same-gender relationships, this isn't part of this particular precept, because there's no harm in 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex. And if you understand the universal truth of impermanence, then you know that ever since the beginning of time, there's never been a time where every man had sex with a woman, and there's never been a time where every woman's had sex with a man, because of the universal truth of impermanence. If that was true, then there would be no universal truth of impermanence, right? If every man and every woman had sex with someone of the opposite gender, that would be permanence. But we understand the universal truth of impermanence, that not everybody's interested in having sex with the opposite gender. So if you prefer a same gender relationship, it's completely normal. It doesn't cause harm. And you're going to learn about this tomorrow. And I like to point out that this is how wise the Buddha was. 2,500 years ago, he already understood same gender relationships don't cause harm, right? There's people today that don't understand that. More and more people are starting to understand that, but he already understood this 2,500 years ago. You know, if somebody would have stood up 50 years ago or 100 years ago and started teaching some of this stuff, it would be really hard for them in society for people to be able to hear that. Nowadays, people are being able to understand this easier and easier, because of the universal truth of impermanence and the things that we see changing in society. But this is what the Buddha understood 2,500 years ago, because he was fully, perfectly enlightened. He was very wise. So we're going to expand this for you tomorrow when we learn the 5 precepts, and you're going to learn about all these here. And there's others as well. Like I said, you're going to need to learn not to cause harm with your bodily actions, right? And you'll see things like the Buddha teaches about not causing harm through taking substances that cause heedlessness. This is like drugs and intoxicants, because it's going to pollute your mind, and it's going to pollute the body, and it's going to cause you to have unalertness and unattentiveness, unawareness of mind. He also teaches about eliminating gambling, because there's an underlying craving there. In order to gamble, you have to have a craving for money, right? So he teaches you different things, but he never gives you an exhaustive list. These are things that you're going to need to learn and understand for yourself to not cause harm with this physical body. Then he teaches livelihood. He says, "In what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood." What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life. Like your job or occupation. How do you choose to sustain your life and actually earn a living in this life? Well, here, he's just giving you a very general, very broad thing, because he has other teachings that plug into it and give you the detail. And here's one of those teachings. He teaches about how practicing any of these 5 livelihoods would cause harm, and therefore harm is going to come to you because of it. So if we have a business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness or poisons, all of those things are meant to cause harm to others. And if we sustain our life on causing harm to others, then harm is going to come to us. And he's encouraging you to be able to see this truth for yourself and then make a choice for yourself of how you would like to sustain your life. But remember, none of these teachings are to be believed. You need to independently verify all these teachings. So let's just take one of these so you can see how it works. So let's just take substances that cause heedlessness. If I stood on the street corner of my community and I sold heroin or crystal methamphetamine into the community, I'm causing harm. And now harm is going to come to me. Standing on the street corner, I can very easily get murdered, right? I can get robbed. I can get beat up. I can get arrested by the police. I can get addicted to this substance myself even, right? So these are all harms that are going to come to me as a result of me causing harm in the community. But this is the natural law of karma. This is a law that's functioning at a much higher level than the human laws, right? Because it's illegal in most places to sell illicit drugs. But also, there's some places where it might be legal to work in a liquor store, for example. Like in the USA, if I was a cashier at a liquor store, the government's not going to arrest me. But if you understand the natural law of karma, you understand how unwise that would be. Because in that liquor store, I'm very likely to get robbed. They get robbed all the time. People come in there with guns and knives and rob those places. People get murdered working in those places because the people come to rob and they murder. People get beat up. At the very least, you're going to be dealing with people who are intoxicated. And how can you get to a peaceful and joyful life if you're regularly dealing with intoxicated people, right? So this natural law of karma is functioning at a much higher level. Human laws are imperfect because they're created and administered by human beings. So the laws of society are not perfect, but the natural law of karma is functioning all the time. So if you understand the natural law of karma, you might decide that it's unwise to take that job at the liquor store, and you might choose to do something else. So you can independently verify each individual one of these if you'd like. So if you would like to do that, you're more than welcome to do that. And you can see how the Buddha is teaching the truth here. Then the Buddha teaches you how to perform your livelihood in order to help you to be able to have success in your profession. He teaches you to eliminate scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is like corruption. So let's just say I was a politician. Right? It's not causing harm to be a politician. It's not one of those 5 livelihoods I spoke about earlier. So if I was like the mayor of my town, I'm not causing any harm to anybody by doing that job. But if I was corrupt, if I was scheming, now I'm causing harm. And now they find out 10 years, 15 years into my career, and I don't get reelected, and now I have a hard time getting a job and sustaining my life. So the Buddha teaches you not to have corruption or to scheme. He also teaches you not to have flattery. What flattery is where you're using insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you. If you've ever gone to a store and you walked in and they were like, oh, that shirt looks so good on you. It brings out the colors of your eyes. I've got these perfect earrings that'll go really well with that shirt. Come over here. Let me show them to you. Right. And you might have been like, you just kind of feel right, kind of buying from this person because they're trying to flatter you with these insincere comments. Right. So the Buddha is teaching you not to do that it would be unwise to just flatter people to get them to do business with you. Then he talks about hinting. Hinting is like not being clear and concise in the way that you talk, in the way you speak in your profession. Again, if we were on a project team and we are going in to talk to our boss, we'd like to be clear and concise about what we're doing and what we've been up to, rather than just hinting around and kind of not really being direct about what it is that we have to talk about. Belittling would be to be degrading or disparaging about our customers, our coworkers, our business partners, our competition, people like that. If we're degrading and belittling those people, it's not going to go well for us in our profession. Even your competition. Sometimes people think it's your job to belittle your competition and that's going to make you look better. But your customers are going to see through that. If you don't have anything nice to say about your competition, just don't say anything at all. If someone asks you like, hey, what does such and such do? You know what? I'm not really sure, but this is what I can do for you. Right? Here's how I can help you. And that's what you would like to focus on rather than belittling your business partners, your co-workers, your competition or customers or anybody like that. What pursuing gain with gain is this is like where you don't really care about the product or service that you're working on and working with. And all you care about is the money. That's all you care about. It's kind of like having a job that all you care about is the paycheck. And if you have this type of job, you're going to ultimately be unmotivated and unenthusiastic about the work. You're going to drag yourself to work every day. If you've ever had that kind of job before, where you just showed up for the paycheck and that was it, you probably felt miserable during that period of time. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to have a livelihood that you have enthusiasm about, that you have ambition, that you have motivation. In this way, you can go to work each day and thoroughly enjoy what you do on a day-to-day basis. Because if you spend 8 hours or however many hours a day at work, and you despise the work and you don't actually enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to be able to get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life, because all you care about is the money in that situation. What you'd ultimately like to get to is a livelihood that you feel so enthused about that even if you didn't get paid for it, you would still do it. That's how much you enjoy it. And of course, you're going to need to get a paycheck. You're going to need to get paid and compensated for the things that you do, because that's how you're going to sustain your life. But you would ultimately like to get to a point where it doesn't even feel like work, right? When I come here and spend time with you guys, sure, I'm spending effort and energy to teach you, but it doesn't even feel like work. It's almost like we're sitting in my living room and I'm just kind of talking to you and helping you guys to understand the teachings. I thoroughly enjoy coming here to be able to share these teachings with you. And before, I used to drive a motorbike and it would be pouring down raining and I'd be driving my motorbike just looking forward to getting to the temple. It's like, wow, when I get there, I'm going to be wet, but I'm going to get a chance to share these teachings with other people, right? So you can be enthused and motivated about the things that you do, and you're going to put more effort and energy into it, and you're going to be feeling like you've accomplished something at the end of your day rather than just going to get a paycheck. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see how to do that in your livelihood. right? So there's more teachings beyond what I just shared with you about right livelihood. The Buddha teaches 2 folds of purification. This is what's called the first fold of purification. You would like to get to the point where you're not performing any of these livelihoods and you're not doing any of these things in your livelihood. That's the first fold of purification. But then there's a second fold of purification that you're going to need to get to. And that's what's shared in volume 12, chapter 14. So if you're in between jobs right now and you're unemployed, or you're in a job that you're looking to get a new job, you might decide to go look at volume 12, chapter 14, because that's where you're going to see the exhaustive teachings from the Buddha about right livelihood. So volume 12, chapter 14 is where you'll find that. And you'll see this teaching here, these teachings here, but you're going to see teachings beyond this too, which is the second fold of purification. So just summarizing the moral conduct section, right speech is ensuring that you're not causing harm through all your communication, your verbal conduct, your text, chat, your posts, your emails, all of it should be harmless. Using those 5 factors of well-spoken speech, speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And remember, you've got that top level too, which is eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. So you'd like to get all your speech to the point where you're not causing harm. And remember, this is going to take time. So you're going to need to have patience with yourself. You're not going to be able to go out of here and snap your fingers and instantly do that. It's going to take gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Then there's right action. This is ensuring that you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. And the Buddha gave you 3, which is eliminating killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. But you're going to get more details on that tomorrow because it's not black and white. You need to be able to see the big gray area that he's talking about. Then there's right livelihood, ensuring that you're sustaining your life in a livelihood that doesn't cause harm to others, and that you thoroughly enjoy and that you have motivation, ambition, and encouragement to do this work each individual day where it doesn't even feel like work anymore. So do you guys have any questions on the moral conduct section? Yes, sir. You have a microphone there?
This is all new to me, but I mean, time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, Robert. Well, go on. I mean, lying. Don't lie. Sometimes you have to lie. I mean, sometimes a little while I avoid the lie. My wife might ask me, "Oh, I'm looking fat today." I'm going to say to her, well, "You're always fat." No, so I'll say, "No, you look okay."
I'll help you with that one. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, by the way, I don't have a wife. That was just a...
Yeah, but this is a common question that people ask.
Yeah.
So I can help you understand that there's no situation where you'd like to lie.
Let's go on the gain. You know, your employers, I had a beautiful job and I enjoyed doing it, but it come with a lot of problems and created by the employers because they wanted to knock you down or work longer hours for less money. But I mean, it was a common problem. Not just one firm, every firm you went to. You know what I mean? They come out with patchy little things. But you go through that, but it comes to the stage, well, just wait for the paycheck. I used to get paid every week, and it was great. And so it's very hard. It's okay saying all these things, but you know, when you got the majority of people that are not doing it, you're going to be confronted with a lot of problems, and you know they're going to see you as an easy touch.
So your practice of practicing this isn't based on other people, right? So these aren't rules and commandments that if everybody practices them, then you will be peaceful. That's not the way this works. The way this works is by you practicing these, you will experience peace and joy in your life. So this isn't about other people practicing it.
It's being used. I mean, people will see you as a soft touch.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
People will see you as a soft touch. You know, if you're so nice and so polite and this and that, they'll just take advantage of you.
That's not possible. If you have wisdom, you will see the way you're functioning right now with the lack of wisdom of this path. You're going to have all kinds of perspectives and perceptions about how things happen in the world. But that's based on your lack of wisdom now. If you implement these teachings in the way that the Buddha is teaching, your life will be completely peaceful. In what you're saying about people taking advantage of you, it's just not possible. Nobody takes advantage of me. Nobody. And I'm practicing these teachings exactly the way that the Buddha taught them. My mind's completely peaceful, completely joyful. So right now, you're just forming a perception based on your current understanding of the world, but you can practice these in a way that doesn't lead to the results that you're thinking that it's going to lead to. You just need to be able to have time to learn it and practice it to be able to see that truth for yourself.
Yes, I need to learn more.
Yeah, that's what's going to help you. Okay. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just have a question. It's not mentioned at all here, and I think it's, for me, it's a pretty important part of life. It's humor.
Humor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about sometime? I mean, you can't tell any joke. It's the purpose is to bring joy to somebody, but someone will always feel hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you're going to use humor, which an enlightened being is going to have fun, they're going to joke, they're going to have fun that way. You can joke without being degrading and disparaging about people. You can tell true jokes, which are wiser and more uplifting. So an enlightened being is having plenty of fun and enjoyment in life. We're not talking about humor because that's just an experience that you're having. We're talking about how to conduct yourself morally. So when you're functioning through right speech, for example, going back here, you can tell jokes in this way. You can still tell jokes and you can have fun, but it's important that you understand one of the things you said is about bringing fun or enjoyment to other people, right? If you're trying to create conditioned experiences for other people, then if they can only be happy when you're telling jokes, then that means when you're not telling jokes, they can't be happy anymore. That's a conditional experience. But there's no harm in telling a joke, but just make sure you understand that you can't make other people happy, right? People have to have that inward happiness. That's the unconditional happiness. They might get conditional happiness based on your joke, but ultimately for them to be happy, they're going to have to get to the point where they train their mind to get to unconditional happiness. But if you'd like to tell jokes all day long. If you like, what the Buddha is advising you to do is do that in a harmless way so that you're not causing harm by being degrading or disparaging to others or even to yourself or telling lies when you tell jokes. Some people tell lies when they tell jokes. The Buddha told jokes. You can see it in his teachings, but he teaches people to not lie when you tell a joke. This is something I'm going to share tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move on to the mental discipline section. The mental discipline section is what's going to help you to be able to put all the rest of this into place. If it wasn't for the mental discipline section, you wouldn't actually be able to practice the moral conduct. Because remember when I first started talking, I was sharing how you have these 8 dials and you're dialing in each one individually, right? It's not like you master step 1 before you move on to step 2. And it's not like you master step 2 before you go to step 3. You're actually practicing all these at the same time. So the mental discipline section is going to help you with the moral conduct. But then also the wisdom section is helping you understand how to practice the moral conduct and the mental discipline as well. So all of this is working together. So I'm going to walk you through right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So these are the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort. So there's 4 things that the Buddha is teaching you here. And I'm going to break it down for you and give you examples so you can understand how to apply this. What he's teaching you to do is to prevent unwholesome mental states from coming into the mind. He's teaching you unwholesome mental states that are in your mind. You're going to need to eliminate those. There are certain wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into your mind. And there are certain wholesome mental states that are currently in your mind right now. And you're going to need to apply the effort to maintain those, support those, encourage them. Don't allow them to fade away. So this example of preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind, one that you can think about as an example is like killing another human being. Right now, the idea of killing another human being is probably the farthest thing from your mind. It's probably not even in your mind whatsoever. And what the Buddha is saying is apply the effort to prevent those kinds of things from coming into your mind. The things that are not in your mind that are unwholesome right now are going to be unique to you. There's certain things that are unwholesome that just aren't even remotely in your mind. And the Buddha is saying apply the effort to prevent those from coming into your mind. The second one is abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. There are certain unwholesome mental states that are currently in your mind right now. And again, that's going to be unique to you. But let's just say someone was in a existing relationship and they were having a craving to have sex outside of their relationship. This is an unwholesome mental state and it's going to cause harm in your relationship. And when you notice that that's rising up in your mind, the Buddha is saying apply the effort to abandon that and eliminate that out of the mind. Or anger, frustration, and irritation. When that unwholesome mental state is coming up in the mind, the Buddha is suggesting that you use right effort to cut that off and eliminate that and get that out of your mind. That would be applying right effort. Then there's producing unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. What this is there are certain wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now that you're going to learn about, and you're going to need to cultivate those and bring those into your mind through applying right effort. So for example, generosity. You're going to learn that generosity is helpful to train your mind to let go, because that's the whole problem that the mind has with its craving, desire, attachment, is it's holding on and it wants things to be permanent. The practice of generosity is going to train your mind to let go and live open-handedly and be joyful in sharing with others, because the opposite of craving, desire, or what craving, desire, attachment does is it produces selfishness, where the mind can be quite selfish. So when you're practicing generosity, it's training your mind to let go. So if you know that you don't currently have generosity in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this generosity into your mind, because it's a wholesome quality that your mind doesn't currently have, for example, just as an example. Then there's a compassion. Let's just say your mind doesn't have compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. The opposite of that would be like indifference, where you could care less about how other people experience the world. Well, if you know that your mind is indifferent and you could care less about other beings, you're going to need to arise compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. And you're going to need to apply the effort to do this. So that would be applying the effort to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. And then there are certain mental states that you currently have in your mind that you're going to need to maintain. You're going to need to support those, encourage them, and not allow them to fade. And this is maybe an example might be loving kindness, where right now you probably have loving kindness in your mind, where you have a genuine interest in seeing others be well, but it's not fully developed. It's not fully cultivated. That's why you get angry in some situations. In some situations you have ill will maybe towards other people, or you get frustrated or annoyed with them, right? So by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have love and kindness for every single being. So if you're noticing that your mind in some cases has loving kindness, in other cases it doesn't, that's because you haven't brought your loving kindness to full growth and full perfection and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to allow that to occur, so that you can bring that loving kindness more and more up in the mind and maintain it. Or say something like sympathetic joy. What sympathetic joy is where you have joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of jealousy or envy. So maybe in some cases, you have sympathetic joy. Maybe your friend says to you, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand next year for a holiday. And you're like, oh, Thailand's great. You're going to really enjoy it. They have some really good mango and sticky rice and some great massages. Oh, you're going to have a wonderful time. Enjoy yourself. You have this joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it. But now let's just say you're at work and you apply for a promotion and you want to get this new job with a new salary, and your coworkers apply too, and they get the job instead of you. And now you're jealous, you're envious. This is because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth and full development. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that. And that's what right effort is. Applying the effort to prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into mind. Applying effort to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities that are in the mind, applying the effort to cultivate wholesome qualities, bring those into the mind, wholesome qualities that are not currently there, and applying the effort to maintain, support, and encourage wholesome qualities that are already there. So this is right effort. You wouldn't be able to practice right effort without the next one. The next one is called right mindfulness. You're going to need right mindfulness in order to practice right effort. So again, I'm going to read this to you, which are the words of the Buddha. Then I'm going to teach it to you. So the Buddha says, in what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So he's talking about four things here. These are referred to as the four foundations of mindfulness. But before we talk about those, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. In general, what mindfulness is awareness of mind. You would like to have awareness of your mind, awareness of the thoughts, the ideas, your emotions, your feelings, what's going on in your mind. Because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we're not even aware what's going on in our own mind. So this word mindfulness, it means awareness of mind. And you're going to need to pay attention to this, because this word mindfulness has made its way into modern language, but people are typically using it in a way that the Buddha didn't use it. So people are oftentimes using it as a replacement for the word careful. So they might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to that table? Well, what they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? So if you came away with this type of thinking, where you were thinking of this word as careful, it's not going to bring your mind to the full understanding of what the Buddha was teaching. So you're going to need to understand what the word mindfulness means is awareness of mind. That's what you're working on cultivating. And for the first 2 or 3 months of you being on the path, that might be where you hang out, where you're cultivating awareness of your mind, where you're just aware of your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, your emotions, the things that are going on in your mind. You need to develop that awareness of mind. But then more in detail, you would like to ultimately develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is being aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and what's called mental objects. I'll explain to you guys what this is. What the Buddha is teaching you is the life cycle that discontentedness is going to take as it's arising in your mind. If you have a craving, desire, attachment in your mind, and you experience some contact through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, your body, and your mind, when you experience contact with your craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you're going to see that contact is either agreeable to you, and you're going to get pleasant feelings, or you're going to see that contact as disagreeable to you, and you're going to get painful feelings, right? Well, before you get those feelings, there's bodily sensations that are occurring. Before your mind experiences the feeling of anger, there's going to be bodily sensations that you may or may not be aware of right now. There's going to be tingling in the body rising up towards the chest. There might be tightening of your chest. There might be tightening in the throat. There might be heat in the face. There might be pressure in the skull. If you're aware of this, this is the bodily sensations. This is having mindfulness or awareness of mind of the bodily sensations. What this is this is the early warning system that you have that alerts you that you're about to get a conditioned feeling. Essentially, those bodily sensations are like the mind saying, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling here. Because the mind's not angry yet. It's just the bodily sensations. And what the Buddha teaches you to do is apply right effort to cut off and let go. Don't allow the mind to form the conditioned feeling. You're not suppressing your feelings here. You're not pushing them down. What you're doing is you're cutting it off before the mind experiences the feeling. You're essentially rewiring the mind. It's kind of like if you were going to take a boat from the UK to Canada and you were out in the middle of the ocean, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get this water out. So once your mind becomes angry, you've got a real problem to deal with. You got to get it out. But if you can prevent it from ever getting angry, now you can just smooth sailing through the day, right? So this early warning system is your mind alerting you that, hey, you're about to get angry here, or you're about to get frustrated, or you're about to feel resentment or shyness or embarrassment or loneliness or boredom. Even the pleasant feelings have these bodily sensations. So where you're noticing those bodily sensations coming up, you would like to cut it off and let it go. Essentially, you're rewiring your mind. You're not allowing it to form the conditioned feeling. And if you do this enough, your mind won't form conditioned feelings anymore because you keep restraining the mind and restraining your mind. But sometimes between now and enlightenment, you are going to experience conditioned feelings because you're not going to be able to implement what I'm saying right here perfectly from this point forward. You're going to experience some conditioned feelings. You're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get annoyed. And when you do, that's the second foundation of mindfulness. If you can have awareness of that feeling, now you can apply right effort to cut that off and let it go, right? So you kind of caught it at the point of the feelings. That's the next best option. Well, if you don't catch it as a feeling, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. Have you ever been angry or frustrated or grumpy for a few hours or a couple of days or a week or two? Of course you have, right? Every single one of us have at some point because we didn't understand this. We didn't know. Your mind was unenlightened. You lacked this wisdom, right? So if you allow to blow past the bodily sensations, it's going to become a feeling. And then once it's a feeling, if you don't cut it off there, it's going to affect the condition of your mind more long term for a few hours, a few days, for a week or two, right? And if you don't cut it off there, it's going to feed a mental object. What a mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind. And in this example, it's ill will. This deeply rooted container of ill will is getting filled up, right? And more you have this ill will. We didn't have ill will when we were first born. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, being angry at other babies. This is why when we were young, we were so happy. We were so joyful. Google. We were so happy and joyful, right? Because we didn't have this mental object of ill will. But when we were early in life, we had cravings. We wanted chocolate and ice cream. And when our mom and dad gave us a chocolate and ice cream, we were so happy and we were so excited. But someday they didn't give us chocolate and ice cream and we got angry and we got frustrated. And because of our lack of wisdom, we thought it was mom and dad that was the problem. And we got these bodily sensations. We got a feeling. We had the condition of our mind for a few minutes, a few hours. We were angry and frustrated. And ultimately it formed this mental object, this deeply rooted container of ill will. All those fetters that we talked about yesterday, those are all mental objects that got formed in your mind over the course of your life. And what the Buddha is teaching you to do is put a blockade at the bodily sensations, cutting off and letting go there, and now purify your mind of these mental objects. Uproot those out of your mind and purify the mind. And now eventually, if you do that, there won't be any arising of any kind of anger. By the time you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, and you get rid of those mental objects, Anger will never arise. It's impossible for an enlightened being to experience anger. The mind just isn't wired that way anymore. It's been rewired. And this is how you do it with this mindfulness, having the 4 foundations of mindfulness and cut off and let go as soon as possible. But it's going to take you time to develop this because you might be going from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye. Like someone cut you off in traffic, boom, you might go right to rage. There's people who road rage, right? They stop their car, they get out a baseball bat, they start hitting people's windows. They didn't see their bodily sensations. They didn't experience the feeling. I mean, they didn't notice it. It went right to this road rage, right? So you can slow this down through training your mind. And it's the next step that's going to help you to do that, which is right concentration. Here, the Buddha is explaining right concentration. What he's explaining to you is he's explaining to you the results of having put together the entire Eightfold Path. If you train your mind in the entire Eightfold Path, you're going to start experiencing this. These are enhanced qualities of mind referred to as the jhanas. What the jhanas are preliminary phases that you experience before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. So I'm not going to read you this because this is the results of having practiced the entire Eightfold Path. What the Buddha teaches of how to practice right concentration, he shares that in his other teachings. And that's what I'm going to teach you now. What he teaches you how to practice right concentration is to develop a meditation practice and to practice singleness of mind. And this is how you practice right concentration, which will ultimately result in the jhanas. When you put together all the Eightfold Path, it'll result in these enhanced qualities of mind. But what you would like to do to practice right concentration is develop a meditation practice where you're doing breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. These are the 2 meditations that you're going to need. In this class, we focus on breathing mindfulness meditation. And I'm going to teach you this after lunch in detail so that you'll know how to actually do this and what you're actually accomplishing. Now that you know the Eightfold Path, you'll be able to understand this meditation much better. But then ultimately, you're going to need to know loving kindness meditation as well. What you would like to do is gradually build up to a meditation practice of 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. It can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this kind of frequency and duration. What you're going to notice is the frequency is more important than duration. So if it's a matter of 1 session for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, go for the 2 for 15. That's going to be much more beneficial for you because the frequency is more important than the duration. And then just gradually expand that 15 minutes to be longer and longer. There's probably certain things in your life right now that are unbeneficial that you're going to need to start clearing out. If you're spending like 3 hours a day on YouTube or 6 hours a day on social media, you can clear some of that stuff out and it'll give you more time to meditate. So you're going to need to do this gradually. It's kind of start clearing these things out little by little. But I'm going to teach you how to build up to this when we talk this afternoon. Then you would like to practice singleness of mind in your day-to-day life. What singleness of mind is just focusing on one thing at a time. What you might have been taught is you might have been taught multitasking. This came about in the 1960s. When computers came out, computers can multitask. So people thought human beings can multitask too. We can do more than one thing. In reality, we can't. We can only actually focus on one thing at a time. If you're actually multitasking, what you're doing is spending 3 seconds, 5 seconds on one thing, and then your mind is rapidly cycling to the other thing, and now you're spending 5 seconds, 8 seconds on that, and now your mind's rapidly cycling to something else. It's kind of like a racehorse running around a racetrack, and you're doing this all day long at work, and when you get home, you're stressed, and you have anxiety, and you can't rest, and you can't relax because you've been running around the racetrack. If you go to a racehorse track, you'll see the racehorses running around the track. But if you go to the barn, they can't calm down because they're all hyped up because they've been running around the track all day, right? So your mind is the same way. So what you would like to do is just do one thing at a time. If you're in a business meeting and your mind's starting to wander and you're thinking about that trip to Thailand that you're going to take in 3 months or 6 months, it's like, no, cut that off. Bring my mind back to the business meeting. You got to focus on the business meeting, right? Or if you're sitting here and you're listening to your teacher speak and you're thinking about lunch and you're like, mango and sticky rice. I really would like to get some of that. He mentioned that earlier. I'm going to get some mango and sticky rice today. No. Cut that off. It's not time for lunch. Come back to what we're doing here. Focus on just one thing at a time, right? If you're washing dishes and your mind is wandering to something else, cut that off and let that go. Bring it back to right now, right? So this is the way that you would like to practice. And if you do this enough, your mind's going to get honed to the point where you have concentration. It's kind of like this. If you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you grinded that back and forth, initially it's going to bounce around a lot because there's not a groove there yet. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, eventually you're going to get a groove in your wood. And now when it pops out, you're going to know that it popped out. You're going to be able to bring it right back. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, eventually you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove and it will never pop out. By the time you're practicing right concentration, your mind will always be concentrated. You'll always be focused because your mind's really well tuned. So you would like to be practicing right concentration where you're developing meditation practice and you're practicing singleness of mind in your day-to-day life, honing your mind more and more. So let me explain to you how this might work, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration in your day-to-day life. Let's just say you're watching the news and something comes on the news and you're noticing the bodily sensations of anger and frustration starting to come up. Because with your mindfulness, you're noticing that, right? And with your concentration, your focusing on one thing at a time, you're noticing the bodily sensations. Well, now you need to apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. So now you might redirect the mind, turn off the news, go outside for a walk, go for a bike ride, go to the bathroom, wash your hands, just go do something else. No need to sit there and dwell in this particular situation because you're just allowing your mind to stay wired to form its inner feelings based on some condition. So you're watching the news, you notice the bodily sensations come up, cut that off, let it go, walk away, go for a walk. You're on the phone talking to your mom. You're noticing the bodily sensations of anger and frustration arising. Hey, Mom, I got to go. I'm so sorry. We'll talk another time. Love you so much. Bye-bye. Right? Just say bye. Right? Just go redirect your mind somewhere else. Because if you stay in that situation, you're going to be dwelling and your mind's going to stay wired that way. Right? So you would like to just redirect the mind and go do something else. And that's going to help you to be able to cut off and let go and get used to being able to do that. Over time, you'll be able to internally cut this off. You won't have to redirect the mind, but initially, for the first long while, redirecting your mind is a good way to do this. Okay, so now just a little summary for you guys. Right effort is taking initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities within the mind. That's applying the effort to do this. Right mindfulness is having awareness of mind, aware of the ideas, the thoughts, the feelings, things like this, in practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, being aware of the bodily sensations arising as a result of craving, desire, attachment, being aware of the feelings, that discontent feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. And you'll learn more about the mental objects as you go forward in your journey to enlightenment. Then you would like to practice right concentration, where you're practicing meditation, developing that practice over a consistent long-term period, and then practicing singleness of mind, where you're focused on just one thing at a time. And eventually you're going to start experiencing the jhanas, which are preliminary phases that the mind experiences, which are enhanced qualities of mind as you're making your way to the first stage of enlightenment. And you'll learn about those in other classes and courses and retreats as well. Okay, and we'll talk about meditation this afternoon. So do you guys have any questions on the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path? Yeah, I have a question.
Hello. Yes, I'm still a little bit curious about what mental object is, and let me give you an example. Like if I get angry about someone, about something, and I want to take a revenge on this person, that's this idea of taking a revenge means mental objects.
The revenge isn't the mental object, but it's coming from your mental object. So for example, like right now, you're not angry, right? You're just sitting here talking, you're quite calm, thinking about maybe going to lunch soon, something like this, right? But if somebody does something, like if one of your cravings get triggered, like say someone says something degrading and disparaging about your mom, that mental object of ill will, that deeply rooted container of ill will, it's going to rise up. and now you're angry and you're frustrated, right? Because somebody has triggered your mental object, and now this ill will is coming up. So it's like a deeply rooted container in your mind that you need to purify the mind of and get rid of it, because as long as that deeply rooted container of ill will is in there, it can come up at any time. But if you purify the mind of it, then you can actually get to the point where it doesn't exist anymore. So all those individual fetters that we talked about yesterday, like sensual desire, ill will, conceit, do you remember those? Those are all mental objects. And what you ultimately learn as you go forward in your journey is I teach a retreat every August where I teach you what are the fetters, what they are. I explain to you them in detail. I explain to you the symptoms of them. I explain to you to how to eliminate them. And I explain to you how to know that you've actually eliminated them. So we spend like an hour to an hour and a half on just one fetter. And then we go to the next fetter and the next one. But this isn't something you need to know right now, but just understanding what a mental object is helpful for you, that it's a deeply rooted container in the mind. And ultimately you would like to work to purify those and get those out of the mind.
Okay, so it's right. It's just like something has been there from your past experience.
Yes. It's something that you've accumulated. It's kind of like dust in the corner of the room. It's just kind of sitting there in the corner of the room. It hasn't been kicked up yet, but it's just sitting there in the corner of your room. It's like in the corner of your mind, this deeply rooted container, and you've got to get rid of it. You got to get rid of this dust out of the mind. Otherwise, it's going to keep rising up, and now you're choking and coughing on it.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep. There's training for each individual mental object. There's certain training, certain tools and techniques that the Buddha taught. So it depends on which individual mental object we're talking about. So that's why in a retreat that I teach in August, I teach you what it is, the symptoms of it, so that you'll notice it when it's rising up. I teach you how to eliminate it, the proactive ways to eliminate it. And then I teach you how to know that you've eliminated it. But none of those things will actually work if you're not doing this. You need to start with this first. This is like the foundation. This particular teaching, the Eightfold Path, you need to know that first. So the proactive methods of how to eliminate something like ill will, it wouldn't actually work if you didn't know this first. You have to first learn this. So that's why I'm teaching you that first. This is a foundational course. Mm-hmm. Looks like we have another question here. Mm-hmm.
A little clarification. Before you had said that the opposite of hate was not caring or lack of any kind of caring about somebody. Wouldn't it be love? Like, wouldn't love be the opposite of hate?
I call those two things opposites, love and hate, opposites. But when we talk about the middle way, on one side is the anger, hatred, ill will, hostility, the bitterness. On this other side is like indifference, it could care less. But there's this middle way of love and kindness towards all beings. That's the middle way. But oftentimes, love and hate are the two opposites of each other. But when we talk about the middle way and coming to the middle with your loving kindness, that's what's going to bring your mind to the
As
middle.
a middle way, I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me just see online if we have anything. Hello to anyone who's online. All right, I'm not seeing any questions online. So what I'm going to do here is pause for lunch, give you guys an opportunity to have lunch. And then when we come back, I'm going to teach you guys breathing mindfulness meditation. You guys have done it now 3 times if you've been in the course since yesterday. But now what we're going to do is I'm going to go in and teach you all the ins and outs of it. And then we're going to do it together this afternoon, because now that you know the Eightfold Path, you'll understand how it plugs in and how it's helping you through the Eightfold Path. So I'll teach you guys that this afternoon. So enjoy your lunch. And is anybody attached to having an hour and a half lunch break? Like, are you guys craving an hour and a half lunch break? Like, if I said like an hour and 15 minutes, would you guys be upset or angry? You wouldn't be? Okay, there you go. You just verified the Four Noble Truths. Nobody has a craving for an hour and a half lunch, so therefore you're not upset, you're not angry, right? All right, there you go. So let's do an hour and 15 minutes today, which means we'll come back at 1:45 instead of 1:30, okay? So thank you guys for understanding impermanence, that you can't always have an hour and a half lunch, right? Thank you so much. We'll see you guys after lunch, okay?